This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta. Today we are joined by Patricia Mukhim. Thrilled to have you, Patricia. Hi.
Hi.
Before I introduce the rest of the panel, Patricia, do a regular call out to keep news independent and free. So people, newslaundry.com is an ad-free news platform. We appreciate those of you who can contribute. This podcast Hafta is free for the next few weeks till we move to our new website. But if you can, do contribute. And once it's behind the paywall, to access it, you will have to contribute. So until then, do so willingly, happily. Last week, we saw a spike in subscription. Thank you all who did. We're really grateful. Your contributions, your subscriptions, power the journalism we do. I hope you have been seeing our reports. We've got some fantastic ground reports. So do follow those and check out what else News Laundry does other than the Hafta podcast. So before we come to the headlines, let me introduce Patricia. Patricia Mukhim is a writer, journalist, and is the editor right now of Shillong Times. She's known for her social activism and writings on mining in Meghalaya and the Khasi people of the state. She's a member of the National Security Advisory Board of the Government of India and serves as a member of the National Foundation for Communal Harmony under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Patricia is also a member of the Education Board of the Indian Institute of Mass Communications, IIMC, where I think some of our colleagues are from IIMC, aren't they, Manisha?
I am.
You are? Okay. Okay, then Patricia, you need to do a better job there. You're churning out people like Manisha for us.
And I completed my tenure immediately after the government, changed. No?
I see. Okay. And you're also the recipient of the Chameli Devi Jain Award and the Upendranath Brahma Soldier of Humanity Award and Northeast Excellence Award. You were also honored with the Padma Shri. So, do I call you Padma Shri, Patricia Mukhim?
No. Please do away with all those frills.
Okay, fine. So, Patricia, first of all, where are you based out of?
I'm based out of Shillong, the capital of Meghalaya.
Right. So actually, Shillong was one of the first few places that I visited in the Northeast when I was really young. I was in class 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, the Delhi and the Dehradun, I'm a Dehradun boy, of the 80s was not very hip and happening. Even the Bombay of the 80s and 90s was not very hip and happening. But Shillong, man, I went out on the streets and I like guys in these leather jackets and headbands. I was like, dude, no one even in Marine Drive can dare to dress like that. You'll be like slapped by some... local. And Shillong was a really cool place back then, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It
had like a rock scene and it had like music scene and it had all sorts of scenes that no other metro in Delhi had. I was like, this should be a metro, man. But it wasn't back then. But we are also joined by Mehraj Lone. Hi, Mehraj.
Hello.
Manisha Pandey.
Hello.
Raman sir is joining us. He's not feeling well, although we don't think it is COVID, so you people need not panic. He's just, I think, got a bit of the mountain hawa when he went and he worked too hard cleaning out his house. So I think that got him. So Patricia, before we come to you, we'd like to discuss a bunch of things. But first, Manisha, I'll just give us the headlines that made news this week.
Yes. Former President of India, Pranab Mukherjee, died at the age of 84. He was cremated with full state honours. India recorded the world's highest single-day spike in cases in coronavirus, with 83,000 fresh cases over the past 24 hours. We've had 3 journalists die in 2 days, 2 of them in very scary circumstances, I'd say, because there was a delay in ambulance. This was in Lucknow and in Pune. Meanwhile, India's GDP shows worst quarterly slump in decades. It's been the worst since we started publishing data in 1996. The GDP contracted 23.9%. 877 newborns and 61 pregnant women died in Meghalaya in the last 4 months. Patricia will, of course, talk to us about that. Before 2019 polls, BJP flagged 44 rival pages, 14 now off Facebook. The Facebook saga continues. And incidentally, Amit Malviya also asked Facebook to monetize Op India. So we now know there's a direct...
Connect.
What do you call that? Hum
ek saath hain, hum saath hain.
Haan. I was going to say Humsafar, but no.
Okay.
Basically. Okay. Facebook bans BJP MLA T. Raja Singh. Prashant Bhushan was asked to pay ₹1 or face 3 months jail term and he paid ₹1. Cabinet approves Karam Yogi's scheme for government officials. None of us really know what exactly this scheme is going to do for them. It's just going to make them better human beings. Former civil servants, activists, Jamia teachers have demanded action against Suresh Javhanke. News Laundry had done a story calling out the advertisers that have, been advertising on the show, which led to unintentionally it led to a huge backlash on Twitter, and there was boycott Amul trending for a whole day. Amul also then got back. I mean, I read a Live Mint article. I don't know if you guys read it, where Amul said that we don't want to get drawn into this controversy. But I read Santosh Desai's comment in it, which he said that you have to start being careful. It can't be. So it's nice if the industry is beginning to talk about
News
it.
Laundry impact.
Yeah. JEE exams were held on Tuesday. They went off smoothly across the country. PM CARES Fund received rupees 3,076 crore in 5 days of March, reveals audit statement made public. In J&K, 99% new domiciles issued to former permanent resident certificate holders, says the government. There were gory images again coming in from Kashmir, where a Muharram procession was fired at with pellet guns. About 30 people are being treated as we speak. Jammu and Kashmir Language Bill 2020 approved by Cabinet. Mehraj can tell us a bit about that. There will be no question hour, and private members' bill will not be taken up in Parliament's upcoming monsoon session.
Although I saw in the news today, they're saying that we'll have a shorter question hour or something. I think that's still being negotiated. They're saying, okay, we won't do away with it. We'll have it a shorter question hour. But
And you can email your questions, something like that.
Although the private members bill...
Private members bill is fine, but question hour, I think...
I agree.
I mean, you have to have a question hour,
Sure.
Looking at the GDP numbers. Adani Group acquires 74% stake in Mumbai International Airport. Kafil Khan has finally been released. He's from the jail. The High Court cleared him of the NSA charges. Turns out he was actually saying things towards
national
national unity, not for
But
breaking.
that depends on your sensibility.
Yeah.
If your aesthetic sensibility is from the yogi school of art,
Yeah.
then that's not building bonds. That is breaking stuff. So anyway.
The centre said that Netflix movie Gunjan Saxena depicts IAF in bad light. The Delhi High Court for now has refused a stay on the streaming. Indian Army has foiled the third attempt by China to change LAC status quo. So clearly things are still as volatile as they were 3 months ago at the border. US says that we will not join global efforts to find COVID-19 vaccine. Sab China ke bharose.
Although, I'll recommend that at the end of the podcast, there is a piece that has, I tweeted out yesterday on COVID vaccine. While Europe has made all the right noises that they will make sure that it's available to everybody and not just the rich countries, that's not what's happening behind the scenes. There's already a trading has started, and there is a index where countries are bidding and just taking care of their own. But let's see how it plays out. But those are the headlines. Thank you, Manisha, for that. So, Patricia, tell us about this particular case, which made the headlines yesterday. Is it unique, or is it just the data for Meghalaya is out, therefore we're seeing it? Do you know or suspect it would be similar in many other parts of the country and not just in the states in the Northeast? And in non-COVID times, are things any different or better?
Those are really hard questions, but I would like to tell you one thing. Let me read out something from statistics provided by the government of Meghalaya. So between April to July 2019, the neonatal deaths were 425, and between April to July this year, it was 486. So there's a rise of 61 deaths. Infant deaths 1 to 12 months, April to July 2019 was 265. This year it is 390. So it's a rise of 125 deaths. Then total infant deaths of 0 to 12 months, April to July 2019, it was 690. This year it is 876. So there's a jump of 186. Maternal deaths were 59 last year. This year 63. So there are four additional deaths. Institutional delivery, and this is the biggest challenge that Meghalaya faces. Last year, they had 59% institutional deliveries. This year, it's gone down to 57%. And full immunization of children, last year was 71%. Interestingly, this year, it's gone up to 89%. Now, there are many, many problems with maternal and infant deaths in Meghalaya. If you have been following statistics, then after Assam, it's Meghalaya that has the highest maternal mortality. And the reasons are many, but mainly it's poor maternal nutrition, the socioeconomic factors. This is what even the government statistics have found, the government studies. there is very low maternal knowledge. And I can say this with some authority because I was involved with a local university here in going to the villages to create awareness on the use of condom, on spacing for women, so that they don't just give birth every year. In Meghalaya, in the villages, the average family size is about 8 or 9 or 10.
Wow.
Some people give birth to as many as 12 children. There's no spacing. There's very poor nutrition. About 56% of women in the childbearing years are anemic. So if you put all these factors together, you get the results that you see. There's absolutely no spacing. And when we went to these villages, to train them, we had taken a dildo because we wanted to demonstrate that. And you can't believe it, the women were shying away. They said, why are you showing us all this? In any case, we cannot negotiate sex, because if we do not agree to have sex, the man will go elsewhere. This is also the problem with Meghalaya, that marriages and these, they are very, very fragile. We have people who marry formally, but we also have many more people who just live together, and these are recognized as formal marriages. But abandonment is very, very high. And a woman thinks that if she does not agree to have sex with her husband, then he might abandon her for someone else. And so, under those pressures, women just sort of give in. Then there is a lot of teenage pregnancies in Meghalaya, and there is no stigma. You have a child out of wedlock, there's no stigma. We also have the highest fertility rate in the country. And we have the highest proportion of preschool children in the country, which is about 19.5% of the state's population. Then we used to have a very strong clan system, which enabled us to take the shocks of being abandoned by a man. The other members of the family would help, would come in and maybe help in schooling the kids. But now the clan system has broken down. It's each to his own. And when you go to some of these areas, even in Shillong, you find so many single women actually working to keep body and soul together. Most times they cannot afford to send their kids to school. And just today in our newspaper, we published a letter sent to us by somebody who said she's a prostitute and she's past class 12. She has 2 kids, is not able to get a proper job. So she just has to sell her body. And she says, this must be the first time you're getting a letter from somebody like me. But we published it because we felt it needed to be published. So it becomes a kind of a vicious cycle, because once a mother is malnourished, the child that she gives birth to is also malnourished.
So it sets up a kind of chain reaction, right? A domino.
Yeah. And, if you have malnourished children being born, then there is stunting. Then, the brain doesn't develop as it should develop. And also, we have lost our traditional diets because of globalization. We've lost so much of our land to coal mining, limestone mining. Earlier on, the forest produce would be part of our diets. Mushrooms and all, you can still gather and have them. Now, with the loss of forest cover, you don't get many of these non-timber forest products, leaves and herbs and all that, which used to be part of our diet. And then there is also this, this lack of trust in vaccines. People think that if they immunize their kids will develop some kind of fever and, even die.
So there's an anti-vaxxer movement there also. But
Yeah,
Teresa, tell me, is this unique to Meghalaya, or is this also true for Arunachal and Nagaland? Or is Meghalaya an outlier as far as teen pregnancies are concerned, as far as undernourishment on young mothers is concerned?
No, it's the same. It's the same in tribal
similar.
societies.
You mean it's similar in many of those states?
Yeah. Except that, statistics are statistics. Some states are notorious for giving out the wrong statistics. So that's a problem.
Now, I have actually, up until I think 2012 or 2013, I visited Shillong almost every year from 2001 onwards. And of course, I've seen it change. It's, from a small town feel, it's become this traffic jams and all, which one never used to have earlier. But, and even while driving across Arunachal, Nagaland, you don't see the visible poverty that you do in parts of UP or even Punjab for that matter. You know, like the जिसको कहते हैं एकदम वो दरदरता kind of, you know, it hits you in the face. It's like you have to turn your face away. You don't see that in almost any
So
state in the Northeast.
it's
So
a
just
sort
explain.
of disguised poverty here.
But why is it that, you know, one hears so much of it from you, but one doesn't see it? While everyone's not like living in the lap of luxury, but you don't see the horrific poverty you do in many parts of the cow belt.
No, but have you visited the interiors of Meghalaya or the interiors of Nagaland?
Well, I mean, I've been to a few villages, like, you know, up from Dirang, we had gone into, you know, some of the other smaller villages, which are just
Okay.
maybe 50, 60 houses, some 30 houses. So, and in fact, it was the village headman who actually gave us a room, because there are no hotels there, right? So we slept in a room in his home. And he served us, you know, the yak meat and all that. So, and I saw that there were very old women working, cutting wood, you know, like women who were really old. I was like, dude, surely she should not be cutting wood and carrying wood to burn. But even so, I didn't see the kind of poverty that I've seen in the villages of UP, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh.
Yeah, we don't have starvation deaths as yet. But some of the statistics are worrying because the last socioeconomic caste census taken in 2011 has shown that 76% of rural Meghalaya is landless. Now, this is supposed to be a community-based society. It's supposed to be a matrilineal society where women are supposed to have place of pride. But all that is now debunked by studies conducted time after time, because the studies have shown that women actually have no authority to take decisions on reproduction. They have no reproductive rights. So if you don't have that, then you really are not an empowered woman. Then that adds to the problem, because then you also, you become part of the low income group. And there is a very high dropout rate of children in Meghalaya. Why? Because of poverty, because education requires money. So you may not be seeing this upfront, especially I think if you come to Shillong, Shillong has now developed slums in different parts. And these are the places where you would see poverty.
Yeah,
You
there were
see
no
the
slums in
children going
Shillong.
out and selling bookmarks for 5 rupees. I mean, a bookmark that costs only 50 paisa is being sold for 2 rupees or 5 rupees. And if you ask them why they're out on the streets, they'll say, we can't afford to go to school. Then where are your parents? My mother goes to work. Where's father? Father has left. This father has left is a very common response.
Right.
Once a man leaves, he just leaves, doesn't pay maintenance. And because we are matrilineal, so the children remain with the mother. And the mother is the one who has to carry all this burden on her own.
If there are any other questions, because I wanted to ask Patricia about the general media state there, but on this issue, if there are any others, we can just ask those. And
No, actually, I wanted to ask her about the Shillong Times being served a notice. And for those of our listeners who don't know, Shillong Times is the oldest broadsheet English newspaper from the Northeast. I think it's 75 years old.
Yeah.
And Patricia, recently you were sent a notice and you were asked to shut down because you guys weren't following COVID guidelines.
Yeah.
So I was keen on.
So we were shut down for 4 days from the 23rd onwards, and we came out only on the 27th. And even today, we are printing from Guwahati because 3 of our machine people had tested positive, and 1 driver. None of the journalistic staff tested positive, but then they all had to be under quarantine and all. But we felt that, because we are an essential service, we just felt that perhaps the district administration was unduly strict about how we should and should not do things. So our whole building was sealed, and but even before the district administration could come on the scene, you have these local traditional institutions. They already came out, and the volunteers just barred us from entering the office. So we, in Meghalaya, we have different hierarchies exercising different rights. And this is what we feel is not a very good idea, because we live in a democracy. I think we ought to be governed by the rules of democracy and not by these oligarchs, and which tend to.
So, but you're back to printing, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
We started publishing from the 27th, But we are doing it we had to get our paper printed in Guwahati, which is quite difficult actually.
And what is the law there? So if there's someone in your staff who's tested positive, the building gets sealed, or is there a certain number of people? Like, what were the reasons
No,
why
no,
you were
even
sent
if
this
one
notice?
person tests positive, the whole building gets sealed.
I guess because for a long time it was insulated, right? So they,
Yeah,
I guess in the
yeah.
northeast, the states wanted to
Because
keep it that
people were
way.
trying to, there is some sort of a competition about keeping the numbers low. I don't know if this is good or bad, because finally the numbers will go up. Now it's become a community spread. And then when the numbers go up, then the government will be blamed. And so the government thinks that by trying to keep the numbers down and bringing in all kinds of restrictions, it will score many more marks. I don't know, in
Although
the public view, of course.
India's the third largest numbers in the world without community spread.
Yes.
Our government refused to acknowledge.
Land of
Well,
miracles.
was it a WHO paper which someone had mentioned that India community spread, and the Indian government got very angry that take it off, then they changed it.
Yeah, because they put out that daily bulletin.
Hmm.
So India is the only country which doesn't have community spread.
Okay, but
All
yet
others
we are
do.
number 3. So that
Even like Bhutan with only 1,000 or 2,000
our
cases
community
has,
spread.
yeah.
That's
Patricia,
It's
what
so
is the
stupid.
situation like in Northeast now, COVID-wise?
COVID-wise.
Yeah.
See, Tripura is doing very badly. The numbers are just going up there. Meghalaya is relatively under control. Nagaland seems to have been able to control it relatively, and Arunachal also is under control. Assam, of course, is very bad. I don't have the latest figures. You can see it. So it's like that. And in Arunachal, it's very funny. People in quarantine are then getting out and dancing to to sort of do away with all the dismal situation,
the stress, de-stress by
yeah.
dancing, which is a good idea as long as you're doing it with social distancing. I
Yeah,
think
they're doing
dancing
it
is great.
social. They're socially distancing and dancing, and they're very unique. Actually, you should do some stories from Arunachal Pradesh.
Yeah, good idea. But now tell me, Patricia, like I said, I traveled there extensively and I really love
Mhm.
many
Yeah.
parts of the Northeast.
Yeah.
I wanted your view on when Amit Shah had kind of mentioned after section 370 wo jo Jammu and Kashmir ka tha,
Abrogation.
abrogation, and then because there is an ILP, which is, for those of our listeners who don't know, there's an L9 permit that is required for Arunachal and not for Meghalaya, but many
Yeah,
other parts of the
yeah.
Northeast, which
Nagaland, Mizoram, Arunachal.
now there was a certain concern there that even here there are some special provisions for the northeastern states, including the ILP and also land ownership. What is your view and the general consensus there of the politics that plays out in Delhi? Does it have a significant impact? Are states in the Northeast as scared of governments as far as the media is concerned? We've seen the state of the Delhi media and many other states, including Kolkata. Depending on which state you are, everybody is scared of, criticizing their government. On that scale, are the states, the northeast of Bengal, are they outliers? Are they at par with the rest of the country? Or are things better or worse over there?
No, we are as afraid, we are as scared of the CAA, and we have all protested very loudly, the whole of Northeast, which was why we were so shocked when Agatha Sangma, the MP from Meghalaya, went and voted for CAA. So there was a huge outcry here in Meghalaya. See, the thing is that we feel we are too small to be assimilated, and once you open up, somebody like an Ambani could buy up the whole state of Meghalaya.
Right.
As it is, we are battling this coal mafia, the limestone lobby, because we feel that these minerals are not given to this place to be so misused to the point of people dying inside those rat hole mines and not being rescued for days, and this has been happening over the years. It's only in December 2018 that it became big news because somebody got out of that hole alive and alive to tell the story. So the way the rat hole mining has been going on, the way the deforestation has been going on, even without the CAA. So, once CAA comes in, then there will be this huge exploitation of the natural resources of this region. And this region is a biodiversity hotspot. I don't know how we can live if we just open up the economy to all kinds of marauders.
This has
Right.
become kind of a
We are
playbook in
just
Kashmir.
as afraid as the rest of India about the stringency on the media. We are afraid. We are, looking behind our backs to see if we're doing the right thing. Sometimes you have to be careful with the words you use because you unnecessarily get dragged into the law courts. We've been through a lot of problems. We've been through contempt of court and this and that and the other. And at the end of the day, the only person who stands with you is your lawyer. Everybody
Right.
else can be sympathetic, but they're not there to stand with you throughout. Yeah.
Yeah, Mehraj was making a point.
She was talking about the mining bit. So this has sort of become a playbook in Kashmir also. After the abrogation, all the contracts for sand and boulder mining have gone to outsiders. All of them.
So there's no Kashmir who got
No.
In
contract.
fact, you guys are speaking about mining. The Modi government is going to introduce reforms, quote unquote, into
Yeah.
the new law, which will basically make a lot of illegal mining legal. What was
Yes.
considered illegal, like extraction at the spot or flouting environmental laws. And I think they've given 10 days for everyone to respond to that.
Also,
And
there.
if that law comes, then it's free for all.
We are currently working on a piece about the master plan, Srinagar master plan 2035.
Mhm.
It's basically, the whole idea, if you really look at it, is to take the people out of there and just make it this tourist place, this sanitized tourist place without the people. It's really scary.
Interesting. Now, Patricia, before we discuss some of the other stuff, when I traveled all along the Northeast over about 25, 30 days, we start from Kolkata and we traveled across the Seven Sisters, and we spent a lot of time, not just in the capitals, but in the smaller towns and villages as well. And I just remember the name of the village was Thembang, where I spent one of the nights in
Okay.
Arunachal, I think it was.
Okay.
One recurring theme that I got, and I'm talking this was between 2010 and 2012, I went there a few times,
Okay.
that if we have disagreements or even if there's land-related issues or law-related issues, we like to settle it between tribes. We don't like the
Yes.
police and the administration to get involved. So
Yes.
my
yes.
feeling was that this place can't be kind of tamed if, I was to use a word which is inaccurate but communicates, the sentiment. So I'm
Mhm.
quite surprised when you say that so many parts of the Northeast too have fallen in line with the diktats that are expected to come out of the government. I would have thought that's the last place which will fall in line. I'd said Coorg would fall in line, the Jats would fall in line, but the Northeast would not. So I'm surprised when you say that even that place has fallen in line.
No, but what do you mean by falling in line?
That
We
too.
have resisted the CAA.
No, I'm talking about the media. Like, when you say that
Oh, the
even
media. Oh, sorry.
So I was,
No.
just that culturally, it's such a combative kind of culture.
Mhm.
I'm surprised that this entire sickness has even kind of infiltrated that place.
It's not as if we've cowed down to anything or that we don't publish anti-government stories, especially anti-central government stories. We still do. But what I'm trying to say is that this climate of fear and apprehension, it does tend to sort of, worry you a bit. You don't know whose feet you're stepping on. And of course, you try to be brave, but then you also look around you and find everybody is complying. And you're sticking out like a sore thumb. But of course, at least when I speak about the Shillong Times, I know that we still maintain our integrity, our independence. We have completely independent views.
Right. Now, I'd just like to move on to our late president. But before that, I had a couple of announcements. One was we are recording this on Thursday, the 3rd of September at 12:30 in the afternoon. So that's the timestamp. Anything that happens after this will not be featured in the Hafta. And also, for those of you who are not subscribers, because we are on YouTube for the next 2-3 weeks at least, maybe a little more, till you pull us behind the paywall. We have the Tiranga soap set, which is a wonderful herbal soap set, which was a part of the package with subscriptions of News Laundry for the month of the independence, which is the orange, the jasmine, and the lemongrass soap, which is a saffron white green. Lovely theme. Sabki Dhulai. This is for subscribers only. You can write into us at contact@News Laundry. And if you want just that, even if you want to gift it, and we'll be actually putting out a lot of really cool stuff for subscribers only that you can, buy. We'll keep you posted on that. And in case you want to gift it to any of your friends, but you have to be a subscriber to actually get any of that. And also to our subscribers, we now have a Kerala group, a WhatsApp group. We had a Europe group, we had an Australia, New Zealand group, we had a US group, we had a Canada group, we have NCR, Bombay. We have, WhatsApp groups. And the idea of these groups is to keep you informed of any new features, any new products that News Laundry is, rolling out. And of course, events. There are no events happening right now, but back in the day, it was for events. So if any of you want to be added to these groups, do write to contact@newslaundry.com with whichever city or state you're in. And if we do have enough people in that city or state to start a group, or there's already an existing group, we'll add you to that group. Now, I'll just include a couple of mails and then move on to Pranab Mukherjee's, death and the legacy he leaves behind and how it was covered. This mail is by Samir Hassan. Also, I had requested all of you, please keep your mails below 400 words. So thank you. Most of you have. Some of you haven't. I'll be a little lax with the rule this time, but from next time, we will strictly enforce the 400-word rule. Samir says, following you since 2014, and you like our stuff, so thank you, Samir. Atul's NL Tippani is phenomenal. No offense to Manisha. And please invite Deepanjan on Hafta. None taken. So on Bangalore violence, Samir has written, when Abhinandan talks about the UP minister and his bounty in 2015, Azam Khan made some remarks about RSS members, and in retaliation, Kamlesh Tiwari said something about the Prophet. As emotional fools, most Muslims got irked. At that time, I asked the question to a lot of people in the community, why are we not putting any accountability on Azam Khan, as his bad-mouthing has started this whole episode? So yes, there is negligence to put one amongst ourselves in the box. From Rushdie to Charlie Hebdo and beyond, most of the time you will find behind these incidents, there will be an amalgam of political forces and uneducated, unemployed people. Look at how blasphemy law in Pakistan has become a fiasco. I disagree with Mehraj that Islam has borrowed the idea of blasphemy from Christian theology. I highly recommend the talk on YouTube, Cartoons and Lampoons Defining the Boundaries of Political Satire and Prophetic Respect, for understanding the blasphemy in Islam and to dispel the notion that Islam doesn't allow critique. People should read Religion as Critique, Islam Critical Thinking from Mecca to the Marketplace. On the Ayodhya verdict, people should watch Professor Faizan Mustafa's Legal Awareness web series, where he critically examined the whole Ayodhya issue. And on Kamala Harris, whenever someone with Indian origin achieves something in the Western countries, most Indians go gaga and think it's all her achievement. It's only because Indian genes, and it has nothing to do with the institutions of those countries. Instead of talking about the pathetic state of our institutions, we talk about the person. Put the same person here, God knows where she will end up. And for me, biopics worth watching are Bandit Queen and Pan Singh Tomar. Thank you, Samir, for your email and for your subscriptions and for your recommendations. I do hope, I will just repeat the recommendations. One is a YouTube talk called Cartoons and Lampoons Defining the Boundaries of Political Satire. The second is Religion as Critique, Islamic Critical Thinking from Mecca to the Marketplace. And the third thing you've recommended is Faizan Mustafa's Legal Awareness web series. So also I'd like to add that Charlie Hebdo on the 5th anniversary of, actually it's not an anniversary, it is that case has gone to the court, I think.
The hearing begins.
The hearing begins, and they've republished those cartoons as a mark of defiance. And in fact, the BBC podcast had an interesting take on that. But
just one small point about what I said about the Christian theology, that is actually the case. Because if you see, the idea of blasphemy is not in the scripture. It's not a scriptural thing. It's a theological thing. And the theological thing, how it came about is when the theologians interpreted certain verses of the Quran or the prophetic traditions. So they imported and sort of interpreted it in the context of blasphemy that was there in the Christian theology.
Okay. Then this mail is from Shahala Khan. Shahala says, overjoyed to hear you read my letter on Al Hafta and accepted my request to contribute to the period leaf. So Shahala has written a piece. Do check it out. It's on newslaundry.com. She's a subscriber and she had listened to our discussion on period leave and wrote a way more informed piece than I could ever write.
Yeah, you can all read it.
So you can all read it. And any specifics on that, Manisha, that you want to talk about that we had not discussed?
I was interested in the examples that she's given from across the world. For example, in Zimbabwe, they call the period leave the Mother's Day leave.
Mother leave.
Mother leave.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, not all people who menstruate become mothers or want to become mothers. But this is just to sort of destigmatize. I also think one interesting point that she made to counter this, why it shouldn't be called Mother's Day, is that while maternity leave is still looked up as, I mean, I think men are still more comfortable with the idea of it because motherhood is exalted as this great ideal and, we're all sympathetic towards mothers or the idea of becoming a mother. But period is still considered a taboo topic. It's something that you don't really talk about, and people still have notions of dirt and stuff like that. So there is a big challenge when it comes to period leave versus, say, maternity leave, simply because how we view these two natural processes.
Right.
The couple of points I like the most is about what we were talking about that day when you said productivity. Market only believes in productivity. It doesn't care what is right or not. So she says there's actually a case to be made, a business case to be made for this. It's good for business. Another key point is that no matter how good a law, no matter how good your intentions, if that thing, if for
Not
example
implemented
period is
well.
a one implementation, if period is still considered like this taboo thing, like Manisha said, you can have all the laws in the world, it's not going to change.
So one good example that she got from the UK was how offices had made restrooms. So rooms which have and also stock up your loos with say painkillers, hot water bottles, sanitary pads. So even if you don't want leave, you could say for just 4 or 5 hours, just go to that room or rest, and also have work from home. I think work from home is a great
I think
idea.
work
for
from home
people.
Yeah.
is a concept
Because
which will
it's-
catch on for a variety of reasons. But Patricia, since part of the Northeast are, matriarchal societies, or at least that's the myth until
Not
some of the
matriarchal, matrilineal.
matrilineal. Sorry, okay, my bad. But is this whole? I mean, you want to weigh in on how period leave would be considered there, because at least to the untrained eye, like mine, who's used to living in North India, women seem a lot more empowered in the northeastern states than they do here.
Yeah, I don't think periods worry us too much. It's a very normal thing. There are no taboos at all. So we go about our work and we don't make a big deal about it. There are some women, of course, who suffer period pains and all. I don't know how they are coping and whether they get special leave. So far, I don't think anyone has granted special leave.
But
to
you think it should be institutionalized like Zomato had done? You think there's a case for companies doing it?
I think so. I think so because some women really have it very bad. The
Right.
majority, of course, go about their work very normally, but some really have bad days on those days, and it's painful. It's aggravating. Yeah.
So Prerna has written on the same issue. So I just thought I'd read Prerna's mail, then we'll move on. Hello, news launderers. Thanks, Arnab. By the way, the joke here Prerna has made it is because he had called us launderers on his show.
He keeps doing that.
Launderers of news.
Launderers of news, ye kya jane. Anyway, so Prerna says, I've been following your channel and the free content you've uploaded for almost a year. And on the occasion of Independence Day, I finally decided to free myself of the annoying conventional media and bought a subscription on News Laundry. Yay, Prerna.
Very good.
Finally, on Independence Day, you broke free and support independent media. Be like Prerna people, all you lazy people who are just listening to this and not paying. Pay to keep news free. Don't be mufat khors. Unless you're a student or you're not earning, then it's fine. You can be mufat khors. But if you're earning and you don't twitch a muscle when you go buy a packet of cigarettes or order pizza online or buy socks or, as I learned, underwear worth 300 rupees, surely you can buy a subscription worth 300 rupees. This mail is regarding the NL Hafta 289. Being a fairly new and relatively young subscriber, I don't think I have the credentials to put forth my arguments regarding most of what you've discussed. But being a menstruating woman, I feel I do have the necessary qualification to present my POV on period leave. Prerna, you absolutely do. Or as Manisha said, my mindset is, let me interrupt your expertise with my confidence. But yes, I think you have more locus standi to comment on this than me and Mehraj put together. So you don't have to, on anything, not just period leave. So do weigh in on any issue you want to talk about. But on this, you say, I agree with Abhinandan to a certain extent, and also with Barkha's tweet. Period leave, although are a great step, I think they might end up militating against women by dissuading employers from considering promotions and salary increments. Also, in the matter of hiring, one can't argue against the fact that even today, in most of cases, pregnancy is still a decisive factor. I'll give you a personal example. My mother works as a principal in a certain institution, and being a woman herself, when she has to make a choice between hiring a newlywed woman or an unmarried woman and a woman who is probably in her early 40s or a man, she invariably goes for the last option.
Oh my gosh.
Because she feels that there are more chances of a young newly married woman going ahead with pregnancy and taking a long leave, or a young unmarried woman tying the knot and then leaving the job to take up domestic duties. I don't agree with my mother, and I'm not trying to justify her, just letting you know this is how it works. What I'm trying to say is that period leave would surely help women if we were a better evolved society where an employer overlooks such factors and purely considers whether a woman does or does not meet the necessary qualification. And the reality is that we have not reached there yet. Having said that, if Zomato has decided to go ahead with period leave and they have a mechanism in place to ensure the same would, so that's great. And also she ends by saying, I want to point out that Zomato has actually decided to grant leave to trans people and not just women, as you stated, wrongly stated. Okay, so we stand corrected on that. But Prerna, thank you. I mean, your mail is extremely well articulated and mature. So it doesn't suggest that you are too young to comment on this. Please comment on whatever you want.
About this,
Yeah.
one point Shala has made in her pieces, that this idea, because of this capitalistic order, we have gotten this idea into our heads that productivity equals the amount of time you work. That's not
That's
the case.
wrong.
Study after study has shown the more time you give people up, the more productive they are. So unless that kind of that
But कल से तो मैं office आ ही नहीं
framework
रहा.
until that framework changes, so
Also, when people say this is how it works, progress in society, I don't think ever comes from people who go on saying this is how it works. This is just how it is. It comes from people who say this is not how it's going to
This
be, or
is
this
not
can't
right,
go
yeah.
on. What is it? Progress. Bernard Shaw who said all progress depends on the unreasonable man. So,
I know, but
I don't-
But
I
Narendra
don't-
Bhai Modi said, others say why, I say why not.
haha.
ऐसा कुछ था, I remember slogan 2014 में. But moving on, earlier this week, former President Pranab Mukherjee and one of the most senior leaders of the Congress, a troubleshooter for long,
Who was also
died.
very stylish in his heydays. Have you seen him with the full mop of hair and when he used to smoke cigars?
Yes, I've seen those
Zara.
photographs, and I've interviewed him. We'll
What
let
year?
Patricia go first. I think in 1996 or 97, I had interviewed him.
Hmm.
I was just going to ask Manisha,
Hmm?
does she get any kind of stick from Arnab and Navika Kumar?
No. I think,
No?
no. I mean, I don't think they'd like to acknowledge that a show
Oh,
like
that
Nuisance
you even
exists.
exist.
they
Yeah.
pretend that we don't exist. Yeah.
I don't think they'd
Actually,
like.
this one, no. Ravi, what's
I mean,
his name?
Arnab
RSS.
Maro's his
I
news
even
laundry
forget
jibes and
to
all that.
say
But
his-
yeah.
I forgot his
Rahul
full name.
Shiv
Rahul
Shankar.
Shiv.
So he wrote that once. No, we asked him for a comment, and he said, "You news laundry people are like ultimate journalists. What do you care about a lowly person like me?"
वैसे we care about all sections of society. ऐसी क्या बात है?
we're not like.
But they don't talk to us or attend many of our events or discussions. But then Arnab doesn't take questions. But most recently, I was thrilled that he didn't name me, but referred to me in his interview to Open India, saying that
Which Meghnad, I don't know how he watched.
I don't know. He was too.
diligently.
I mean, I haven't
couldn't-
watched it. I've just been told what he said. So I
5
could be wrong,
minutes.
but Meghnad has told me. So if it's wrong, please blame Meghnad. That he said people who used to make
Puppet
puppet
shows.
shows should not call
Can't tell
themselves.
us what journalism is.
Can't tell us, or
Ah.
shouldn't call themselves journalists.
And they
Okay,
can't tell
okay.
us also.
So, Arnab, I hope you listen to it because it's free right now, so you can listen to it. You don't even have to subscribe.
It's way more interesting than your 2-hour rant about yourself.
But I've never called myself a journalist. In fact, if you see many of the places where I'm introduced as a journalist, the first thing I'm on the mic and say is, I'm no longer a journalist. But I will say I was a journalist for 5 years of my life. And I did more journalism than you've done in 20. Because I was always on the road, whether I was doing a Tatti story of Hafuz Aam, Ratnagiri ke, because I had gone there to interview Narayan Rai, and Narayan Rai told me to fuck off. And I called up Malinder and said, what do I do? He's not giving me. He says, अच्छा वहाँ पर बहुत अच्छे बाग होते हैं हाफुज आम के, तुम उस पर स्टोरी करके आ जाओ. तो हम उसी पर हो. So I have done enough ground reports, which I don't think you have. But he does occasionally take a snide jibe at us, Patricia. But why don't you go first on Pranab Mukherjee? What do you think his legacy is, should be? Where does he stand as a national leader? He's got a Bharat Ratna also, right?
Yeah. Modi ji
His
gave.
government honored him with that. I think he, like everybody says, is the prime minister we never had because of dynasty, because of so many other reasons. But I think he was very good as finance minister, and he understood the very nuanced kind of policies that states needed to have. So he was the one who crafted this special assistance schemes for the Northeast. And he didn't tie them up to any particular scheme because he said each state has its own needs, its own pressures, pulls. So this money should be used to adapt to those, to the potential that each state has. I think he was the only politician, Delhi politician, who really understood the Northeast. The people of this region actually are indebted to him in many ways. He also crafted the Northeast export promotion policy. It was kind of an industrial policy that gave some sort of tax holiday to investors to come here. The idea was to just, jack up investments in this part of the world, because normally nobody comes to invest here because of the conflict, of the violence, of the extortion, and all the blah, blah, blah. So he tried his best, but how far he succeeded is, of course, all this depends on how the states use the money that comes from Delhi. which is never monitored, it's never evaluated. It
Yeah,
just
man, the special Northeast packages. I remember when we guys were
Yeah.
in college and,
Mhm.
Hindu, Hansraj, Ramjas, a
Mhm.
lot of these kids, and I mean, I'm talking like liberalization was just about, this is just around 92, so liberalization hadn't hit us. So
Uh-huh.
that time, like having a Maruti Gypsy was a huge luxury. Like
Yes.
only the really rich kids had Maruti Gypsies. So who had Maruti Gypsies? Rich kids. And a lot of these kids who were government employees from the Northeast, yeah. Even if it was a junior engineer's child. So there were a few, like for example, Ramjas Hostel had a huge Northeast population. Hindu Hostel had a significant, and they had a lot of vehicles, yeah. And they would say, "We get a package, man. You guys don't." I was like,
Yeah,
"You want
yeah,
to?" So
yeah.
I was like, "Okay, fine, thanks." But
No.
there were special packages that a lot of money was never monitored where it went, right?
No, never monitored. And you should, a couple of years ago, Mizoram came up, some young people of Mizoram came up with a calendar that showed up all these mansions belonging to public servants, politicians, and bureaucrats. I think that's a good way of calling out these people. You come to Nagaland, go to Dimapur, there's a colony where only the rich and famous live. Oh my goodness, you can't see those sort of mansions even in Delhi, perhaps.
Yeah.
So that's
But-
where all the investment goes, no? Private
very-
pockets.
But very interesting about Pranab
And
Mukherjee's...
the roads are left like that for years now, for decades. The road that connects Dimapur to Kohima is in shambles. Oh my goodness. It's not motorable.
But I will say that road from Guwahati to Shillong, the Bada
Shillong,
Pani,
yeah,
Chota
yeah.
Pani, that is finally made, man.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
but
that is really good now. Yeah.
that's really good. But I remember when it was being made, and I think it took 2 or 3 years for it to make.
Yes,
And
yes.
during those 2 or 3 years, I had the most trips there. And I'm not
Yeah,
joking. Once it
oh.
took me about 12 hours. That it was
Yes,
only one
yes.
lane,
You
and
you could miss your flight. I
Yeah,
missed my flight on 2 occasions.
it was
Yeah.
ridiculous. I at one point, our camera crew said, "Let's just find a hotel, spend the night here, and we'll just shoot later." Because these were like kilometer long. But now that road is like 8 lane. It's phenomenal now.
Yes.
But
yes.
it was interesting to know about Pranab Mukherjee's legacy in the Northeast. I had no idea about this. What Patricia has
Yeah.
told us.
Also, another part of his legacy, which because in this country obituaries is usually written as hagiographies, which got sort of wasn't played up. Some people mentioned it is his links with Reliance. He used to be their bagman.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
His
Reliance
enduring
wouldn't have
legacy is crony
grown-
capitalism, actually.
Yes.
That's it.
Reliance wouldn't have grown to what it is now if not for Pranab Mukherjee. He used to be, as somebody pointed this out, he used to be Congress's Piyush Goyal at one point of time.
I mean, bigger, I think.
Obviously, I mean, several
Much
times
bigger,
and
yeah.
more
a lot
And
of-
intelligent,
also
obviously,
did a
yeah.
lot for Reliance
Yeah.
to grow.
A lot of
in
stuff
terms
a lot of stuff can't be published. There was rumors of Pranab Mukherjee being very close to certain senior
There was
Reliance
a
executive.
headline in, I mean, this is what I read few days
He
ago.
would have done it for the party,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
But it was
the government
it was reported back in the 80s. There was a Telegraph headline, an editorial headline, which said that Minister of Finance or Minister of Reliance.
Right.
So I mean,
Ah.
his
yeah, that-
favoring of Reliance was fairly covered.
But,
I mean, it was questioned.
I mean, my story of him, and this is when I say that you are never too old to change for the better or for the worse. So back in 95, 96, I was one of the most important reporters that Newstrack had, where I used to be sent to do stories कि निकू क्या करे कुछ कैमरा टीम लेके जाओ सब politicians से पूछो उनका न्यू रेजोल्यूशन क्या है. So these are the kind of important stories I often was asked to do. So I just took the camera team. I said, okay, I got in the car. And I said, चलो हम ये जंतर मंतर रोड से शुरू करते हैं. And I would just go, because that time there were not 30 channels, right? A Newstrack camera, everyone wanted to. And I just started ringing bells. And I rang Pranab Mukherjee's bell because that time he was nothing. He was out of favor. Sitaram Kesri had taken over the Congress, And one person came and I said, Pranab Mukherjee hai? They said, हाँ. He came to the gate himself. He was this tiny man, and I'd never seen him before, so I was shocked to see just how tiny he was. He said, yes. I said, sir, I've come to ask you, what is your New Year's resolution? He said, okay, you want to do on the road? Or I said, no, there's a bad frame. I said, why don't we do it? Can I see? He said, yes, just come. He walked with me. Behind his house, there was a vegetable patch. I said, why don't you stand here? He said, okay. He was so obedient. He just stood there. Okay, what's the question? I said, what is your New Year resolution? I will spend some time reading. I'm writing my book. And he so you'd like tea? I said, no, thank you. And that time, because when a politician is out of favor, he's a bloody nobody, yeah. And he's thrilled to see a camera.
Yes,
And then I saw an interview of his with Rajdeep, where Rajdeep interrupted him. And he said,
Yes.
I'm a former president. Speak with respect.
He was so annoyed with Rajdeep.
I was like, dude, I was telling you, stand against the sun, now stand here, stand there. And you become the president and you're like, don't you dare interrupt me. So no matter how old you are, it can go to your head. And I remember immediately after him, I went to this guy who had been given a special bungalow, although he was no one of any worth, something Bitta. He was with the Congress. He's a Sardarji with, he had lost
Oh yeah. He was
part of
youth
his
Congress leader.
Youth
Yes,
Congress. Yes. Remember in a bomb blast, a part of his leg had got injured. And
Yes,
after
yes,
that,
yes.
he became this really favored guy in the
Yeah.
Congress. So he had also got a bungalow there, although he had no right for a bungalow. So he said, yeah. And that time reporters were treated so well, juice, breakfast. So I never used to eat breakfast. If I was going to interview a politician, I knew I'd get breakfast. So he said, अच्छा प्रणब मुखर्जी ने क्या बोला? मैंने कहा, so he had already given me his interview. मैंने कहा उन्होंने बोला कि वो बुक लिख रहा है. मैं भी लिख रहा हूँ. तो फिर से कैमरा लगाओ. मैं भी बताता हूँ. So it was
Sweet, yeah.
So this was, and you could just ring the bell. And speaking of, when I saw that Aaj Tak video, for those of you who don't know, there's this Aaj Tak video, India TV, where this reporter has rung the bell, and clearly it's not the first time he's rung the bell. And this gentleman opens, not a gentleman, but this guy opens the door in a kacha
He's a
and
gentleman.
no top. He's a gentleman.
Why is he not a
But then he
gentleman?
says, and he's saying, get out of here. Now, many people, and I, of course, had a very condemn-filled tweet that how can India today think this is okay? And then they're saying, oh, look how he's treating our reporter. And in the background, you can see a child, like a 4-year-old child. Like if I had my child and someone was bothering me at the door, I wouldn't just push the person off. I'll tell you that. I mean, when it comes to kids, I mean, at least I'm extremely protective. So people saying, what is the criteria? Like if someone's not speaking with you, I'm saying, a general rule of thumb bana lo. If you can do it to Amit Shah, then do it to everybody. But if you can't do it to Amit Shah, like I could ring Pranab Mukherjee's bell and he could come and say, what do you want? Now, had he said, I don't want to speak with you, I wouldn't say, tu bahar to aa. I'd say, theek hai, bye-bye. So if you can't do it to
Tell me
Amit Shah...
something about media ethics. If you're sending, as a senior journalist, you're sending 2 questions to the chief minister and you need to, to file a story. And the chief minister just does not respond. What do you do?
Well, good question. You wait till he comes out for the his session or something, and then you fire the question. If he doesn't respond, you have the video, or then you say he didn't
I'm
respond.
talking of now when you can't meet anyone physically.
Good point. What do you do? I mean, I say you go with the story. No, you don't wait. I think you give someone 24 hours. If they don't come, you go with it.
That is the practice.
No, I thought like the
everybody
story
does
is
that.
the response. So it's just something you want them to respond on.
Yeah. No, see, you need to get the CM to respond on a host of issues.
This is
some
a
more
general,
crucial
like
than
give a press
others, which are
conference sort
not,
of a thing.
which are directly under his, command. He's Minister of Tourism, he's Finance Minister. So you need responses on those issues.
Then you do what
send 3 questions and then you don't get a response at all. What do?
You do what Bhupendra Chaubey does.
What does he do?
He praises Modi ki new paradigm. He doesn't he doesn't talk to us anymore, which is great because he does Man Ki Baat.
Huh.
This is a new paradigm in communication.
Monkey Baat. The people here don't know Man Ki Baat, no? So they say Monkey Baat.
In this Aaj Tak case, it was even worse. I mean, he didn't just go ring somebody's bell. He went and basically said like he's a drug peddler.
And also you have to see under the tweet the number of people who abuse journalists, and they've said ki acha hua. I mean, at one point these proprietors should also think, look at how much animosity you've created in
Yeah.
society
Of
against journalists.
course. Yes.
People
yes,
hate
yes.
journalists now.
Yes.
But that
mean-
fuels the cycle. No, it gets you eyeballs, right? I mean,
But it's disgusting.
it's come down to
at
that
least-
only.
I mean, this is something that owners need to think
but
of. What if
Manisha,
you-
when you watch how the journalists are sort of, my God, look at the haranguing that Riya Chakraborty is going through. I also begin to hate that. Yeah, my goodness, it's really too bad.
Anyway, I just thought that the one thing that I did notice, in fact, I didn't notice it. My mother noticed it. She, like all old people, whenever someone dies, she's hooked onto the television and often cries. Whether she gave a shit about the person or not. It could be anyone. I think tomorrow if, the most evil person in the world died, she'd say, oh, how sad. Dekho. So she says, so she was really, I think, looking forward to the wall-to-wall coverage of the cremation and then this. She says, कमाल है, प्रेसिडेंट मर गया है और सुशांत सिंह राजपूत दिखा रहे हैं. जब भी कोई मरता है वो कम से कम 3 घंटे तो दिखाते हैं. उन्होंने दिखाया नहीं. I said, good point, mother. I'm sorry you have not got your chance to turn on the waterworks. But I was wondering, yes, he's a former president. Yeah, there was no wall-to-wall coverage. So is it Sushant? Is it COVID? Or you couldn't have a visual spectacle of a procession and a cremation Because even when someone less important dies, there's a lot more coverage. There's live coverage of the proceedings.
This time it was done very, with all
Yeah, there wasn't
COVID
even
protections
any,
and all
like there
that
wasn't
stuff.
even like the usual. Forget the live procession. I guess that will only happen for BJP leaders from now on. That I think we're sure of.
But
But
COVID. So you think it's COVID or what? What is it?
it's Sushant and Riya.
Okay, so I'll just have a couple of emails and then we can discuss what's happening in Kashmir. Mehraj, you can tell us. We had 2 or 3. One was the Muharram related firing and the other is this language policy.
Yeah.
You can just tell us about that. Hey, Hafta team, your team is doing a great service to the nation by showing a mirror to media and the people like us who consume shit. I was an ardent TV news watcher. I stopped consuming TV news a couple of years ago when all the anchors started doing angry young women men facade. Also closed all my social media accounts around the same time.
Wow, what a peaceful life you live.
Discovered News Laundry on YouTube and as recently as this year, thanks to TV Nuisance. Manisha, awesome job by the way. Just wanted to say hello
Thank you.
and would like to engage with you awesome people sometime. Eagerly
Yes.
awaiting your next hafta. Abhinandan repeatedly asking or shall I say demanding you pay for content actually works. Even though it gets frustratingly repetitive, it forced me to come forward. I'm glad my haranguing forced you and those of you who it hasn't forced and are shamelessly consuming news for free and then cursing reporters and other news organizations by saying, why do they give shit news? Well, because shit news sells to the advertiser. If you want news to serve you, like we say, when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. So if you want a reality show, leave news to advertisers. If you want news that serves the public, step up, go to newslaundry.com and pay to keep news free. And those of you who are a little more generous and could afford more than 100 or 1,000 rupees a month, you can also pay for our latest NL Sena project. In case you want to know what the NL Sena project is, it's called Disastrous Consequences. The year 2020 has been a horrible year with floods, cyclonic storms, droughts, and wildfires ravaging regions across the country. Why have these disasters occurred in the pattern that they have? How do they actually affect the ecology and the environment? We're going to be covering this through ground reports in Bengal and Assam. We're going to have 2 reporters dedicated to this. The total outlay for this project is 1,75,000, out of which we have already raised 1,26,000. So those of you who've contributed for this NL Sena project, thank you. Those of you who'd like to, please do, because unless you pay for ground reports, people would rather just sit in studios and shout because it is more economically efficient to do that. On that note, just one more mail and then I hand over to Mehraj. This is from Kingshuk. I'm writing this mail right after watching Abhinandan's interview with Gulzar on the night before Prashant Bhushan's sentencing. By the time you will read this, we will all know his fate. And something tells me it's going to be ugly. Well, how about that? They found a nice middle ground.
Yeah.
I want to bring up an issue which you guys missed on last hafta, which is the government's new diktat on the OTT platforms vis-a-vis content on the Indian Army or the armed forces in general. It demands that the creators of any web series or films of the topic of the armed forces get prior approvals of the forces. This is the result of one OTT platform where the armed forces were shown in a poor manner, which was obviously, which irritated, the Ministry of INB and the Ministry of Defense. And he says, this is not just the shocking part. The shocking part is that diktat has existed for quite a few years for the theatrical film releases and not one news organization thought it may be the direct attack on free speech. And even if they did, they simply put a 100-word piece about it in their website and went on with their obsession with Sushant Singh Rajput and how horrible Riya is. From Punjab sacrilege law, which the media failed to notice, to now the armed forces telling us what and how they should be portrayed. Kinshuk has gone on to say that in that case, the Supreme Court will say you can't show courts in this way.
Government they did already.
Police will say you can't show police in this way. So then where does it stop? The point is people or institutions of power don't like to be held accountable, but they have to be. So good point, all good points. But Kinshuk, one thing I will tell you is that if you take the army's help, because I've done a show with the army, 26 episodes called Jai Hind. It was not a news show. It was a show just about the forces. Because we were using army tanks, army helicopters, army vehicles, every episode had to be passed through, not the MOD, but by the chief's office. It used to go there. And they used to cut out stuff that they thought may compromise security, in the sense that if we had shown a particular water tank, they said this water tank will help anyone identify where this is. So therefore, they would ask us to take that out. Or if when JP Datta makes border, he is using all the army facility, then they have a right to tell you what to do. But the point is, if you're shooting it on your own and you aren't using army facilities, then absolutely.
Yeah.
But the
Also,
thing is,
I
most
guess-
of them use army facilities.
I guess the difference is also in a documentary versus a film, no? Like, not like Border was all true to life. A lot of the incidents they show never really
Yeah.
happened. So just because that suits the image doesn't mean you allow one thing to happen. And
No, absolutely. I think a previous person on the Hafta subscriber has written about which US, I think Zero Dark 30, the
Yeah,
one.
Zero
He says
Dark.
that was a propaganda film that was pretty
That
much
was absolute
funded
propaganda,
by the
yeah.
White House, and they got information from there. So when you get, basically, if your film is dependent on the forces, then they will have last call. If you're not dependent on the forces, and if you can hire 40 other jeeps, repaint them, but if you don't want the budget to do that, and then you'll tell the army, यार मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है, तुम अपनी जीप दे दो, तो ठीक है ले लो फिर, लेकिन फिल्म हम देखेंगे. And that's how it is.
I mean, if it's propaganda, like you said about Zero Dark 30,
Hmm.
Seymour Hersh wrote a piece afterwards saying this is not at all how it happened.
yeah.
Right.
Also, they glorified the torture. They led you to believe that the torture actually gave them some leads, but that never happened. What was the waterboarding? What is it called?
Yeah,
They had a
waterboarding.
name for it.
They
no?
had,
But that
they had
specific torture
enhanced
that-
interrogation
Enhanced
techniques.
Interrogation
yeah.
techniques.
Sorry, you were saying, Patricia?
Jargon.
No, I'm saying it reminds you of the days of embedded journalism,
Yeah.
the
That was-
Cargill coverage and all that. Yeah.
In fact, there's a great Amazon movie on this. How this one man, which is a true story, a whistleblower, how he blows the cover on the lies on this technique that they were using. And that has a little clip of Zero Dark 30. So he's been on the story. I think you guys would have seen it. Not Adam Sandler. Who's that guy?
The
Adam
reporter.
Driver.
What do you guys think of
The Report.
Gunjan Saxena, the movie?
Well, I actually reviewed
We
it for our
discussed-
other podcast. I think it is a terrible movie that everyone must watch. It's no, I'll tell you why. I think because the issue it takes up is a very serious issue, and it's a real issue. The misogyny and the sexism everywhere, especially the forces. Because I think if I had a young child, 5, 8, 10 years old, who'd watch this film, they would not look at the technical aspects of the film. They would just inspire them. So I think from that point of view, it is a film every family must show to the boys and girls of their families, because but if you're asking me as an audiovisual professional and a former camera assistant and assistant director in Bollywood films, it is so bad technically that it is embarrassing. But yet I would recommend everyone should watch it for other reasons.
Yeah, and we discussed this earlier, but I think that they shouldn't have taken liberties that they did because it is based on a real person's life. So I think it should have been true to
Yes,
what
yes.
really happened.
What do you think, Patricia?
No, I thought it showed, it was a bit sexist in a sense, because you're showing all those guys in very bad light, which I don't think is the case today. I don't know if that was the case.
No, you're right.
during-
It was too much. Like, it can't
Yeah,
be that
like-
every single person is such a jerk.
Yes.
And jerk to the extent कि उसको fly नहीं करने दे रहे हैं, then they're singing like rowdies, and it was, and that, of course, that Panja scene was, I mean, we've talked about this, but
Yeah.
Panja scene was pretty ridiculous.
So, Mehraj, your home state, not a state, your home union territory, sorry.
Just home is enough.
Home is enough. Okay. Your home was in the news again after a long time. In fact, Kashmir is not in the news so much these days. I wonder if that's because of by design or
By design.
But what has been
obviously.
in news for the past
Sushant
1
only.
month?
But so there was
Nothing.
a firing during the Muharram. If you could just tell us what happened there. Was there a violation of any diktat that had been laid down? What are the kind of casualties one has seen? And also this other rule of
Languages.
land and language.
So what happened is on the 10th of Muharram, which is the first month in the Islamic calendar, the Shia Muslims take out a procession. It's to mark the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, who was the Prophet's grandson, who rose up against a tyrannical ruler at the time and who was killed along with his entire family in the town of Karbala in Iraq. So to mark that, Shias take a procession. It's basically a mourning. It happens every year. And every year, I remember when I was in college in 2008, and I was doing my internship for a journalism internship. Around that time also, since then, always, without exception, they're always targeted by the police. Always. This time the violence became even more brutal because they used the excuse of COVID, saying you are not permitted to do this, and they fired pellets, which I have said previously. Pellet guns are basically used for hunting. In Kashmir, they've been used on people. People have been injured in their eyes, which means they're blind for life. For no crime, just for exercising their religious right. And even if it was the case that, say, COVID doesn't permit it, that which wasn't, like I said, because it happens every year. If that was the case, that COVID, you could have done it in a proper order, like for example,
Like they have
Ram
said,
Mandir was done, or the
100
Tirupati
people
was done,
karo.
Jagannath was done.
Yes.
You could have done that easily. But the first response, anytime like somebody doesn't listen to what you have to say, is brutal violence.
That's become the norm.
That's become the norm. And it's not just Muharram. I mean, this came out because it happened all at once. Around 30 people. Another thing is, militant gets caught up somewhere, you blow up 15 houses. Like happened in Srinagar recently. So this brutal violence and this like mindless destruction of property, the whole idea is to basically, that's been the idea all along, to subjugate the population. Yeah, reduce them, to basically dehumanize them. And that's what is happening. This is all part of the same thing.
And the second law that has come up?
Law is, so Urdu has been the official language of Kashmir for a long time. Not Kashmiri, because Kashmiri is only spoken by people in the valley, and others like in Jammu, some people speak Dogri, some speak Hindi. In the mountainous areas, people speak Gojri, and Pahadi, other places people speak Ladakhi. So for all of these people, Urdu was the official language.
Now they've included the rest.
It was the court language. Now they have made it one of the languages. Others are Hindi, Kashmiri, Dogri, and Ladakhi. English, sorry, not Ladakhi, English.
Why not Ladakhi?
Now that's a separate territory.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Fine.
So eventually, the way these guys function is, the whole idea is to make Hindi the official language. The rest is just like the
That actually debate has
cover-up.
become a big issue even in the South
Yeah.
about Hindi. But I
But
just
again,
think
they have just said these are going to be the languages. They haven't given out the details, what will be used, what will be the court language, what will be the official language, if state documents are to be written, which language they'll be written in. Just that these will be, the details will come later. So we'll get to know when that happens.
Patricia, there are so many languages, right? Even within states.
Yeah.
So how does the official language there get decided? Is it like English is...
English is used largely because there are too many language groups and you don't know which one to pacify and which one not to. So, and most of the languages are seeking recognition other than Assamese, Bengali, and Nepali, and then Bodo. The other tribal languages are not recognized.
And there are a lot of tribal languages. So it's not like the one large chunk.
So as such, there is
like
no
Khasi
problem
is
with
not recognized, so it's not used in the assembly. Although I wonder, because our MLAs, our elected representatives, find it so difficult to express themselves in English that sometimes they say the wrong thing. The other day, the health minister said, "If you have to walk in my feet," or something to that effect, then you will not criticize me.
Right.
So everybody made fun of that. But why can't we speak in the language we are comfortable in and have interpreters?
In fact, now the technology for translation is so evolved that real time, like forget like parliament and assembly. Sometimes when I go for conferences, this year to koi bhi conference ka nyota jo aaye the sab chaupat ho gaye, because I've gone for conferences overseas and these are tucha conferences that people like me are invited, so you can imagine how important they would be. So even in those conferences, let's say 30 of us, there's a headphone, because there'll be some from Germany, there'll be some from Spain,
Yes.
and you can pick whichever language and whatever the person is saying, it's real time being translated in your ear.
Yeah,
why can't we do this within India?
All international conferences have that facility everywhere, because people just speak their own language. They have they don't hesitate to do that because that's the language they're comfortable in. Why should we be forced to speak English?
I mean, of course, it'll always be a challenge to translate Trump. Like, what language will you like? English ko English kya? What is he saying? But yeah, you get
also,
the picture.
Policies like this, having multiple languages in a place which is multilingual, it's a good thing. But the problem is, that's not the idea behind it. The idea is to impose. It's a cover to impose Hindi in Kashmir, for example. Until like a few years ago, 5, 6, 10 years ago, maybe, Kashmiri was not taught in schools. I mean, we speak Kashmiri. I speak Kashmiri. I later learned to read and write. 99% of the Kashmiri people can't read and write Kashmiri. They can read and write Urdu. They can read and write Hindi and English and all the other stuff. But they can't do with Kashmiri.
That's
because
really
it was
bad,
never taught.
No,
And
but
that
that's
is by
true
design. That doesn't
true of
happen like
most
by
tribal
chance.
languages here as well. Many people now don't speak the language, and recently the UNESCO said that Khasi is the fastest dying language.
Whoa. On that, I must say, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, a lot of these states have really made
Bengal
sure. I mean,
also.
considering Tamil is the most ancient spoken language, although there was some Twitter debate on it, and Twitter debates are as informed as Twitter debates will be. And someone said that, no, one of these Hindutva icon types only, on Twitter Hindutva icons with the blue tick, said that Tamil has come from Sanskrit. And of course, all the Tamilians said, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, Tamil has not come from... And then he said, this word comes from this. Then someone pulled out that, first of all, why don't you look at the scriptures? That when Shivji played his Damru, from one side Sanskrit came out, on the other side Tamil came out. So we came out at the same time as you.
That's a completely different language group. I mean, that debate has been long set.
No debate is long set. It had been long set that you can't discriminate on the basis of color. See what's happening in America. By the way, I was shocked at Trump's press conference after he visited Wisconsin, man. What town? Kenosha. Like, dude, yeah, the guy is going like full on. He said, forget it. Don't even pretend to be like
Election
non-racist.
coming up.
Wow. Yeah, that was quite shocking. So, okay, now we just now, Manisha, just stand by on the Facebook developments. We want to discuss that a little bit.
Facebook or GDP?
GDP, okay,
GDP,
let's talk about GDP. I'll talk about Facebook. Now, before we move on to the next subject, Patricia has to carry on. Thank you, Patricia, for joining us. Before you move on, can you please give us some recommendations and any closing thoughts that you have?
I think everyone should watch News Laundry and Manisha at her best.
Thank you.
for that
That's very
recommendation.
kind
and
of
listen
you.
to your podcast
Thank you.
because it gives us, a different perspective of the media. Yeah.
Thanks, Patricia. Thank you so much. Good luck with what you do, and hopefully I shall be able to make a trip again.
Yes, please do.
Ever since
please do.
News Laundry came, my travel has stopped. Maybe I shall rediscover travel and see you in
Yeah.
Shillong. Bye. Have fun. Take care.
Bye.
Before we move on to the GDP numbers, etc., which Manisha will tell us about and how beautifully they were covered by our primetime geniuses, we have a email which is a 1,113 word email from a subscriber who doesn't want to be named, which I won't. But dear subscriber, I cannot possibly read 1,113 words. It'll take me about 12 and a half minutes. So I will give the nichode of what you're saying. I'm from Bangalore. I request you not to disclose my name. Maybe this letter is long, but I request you to read it so that no other subscriber should make the mistake that I made with News Laundry as subscriber. And you go on to say that you've been an on-off member since 2014 and you discovered News Laundry. Depending on your financial condition and state of mind, there were months when you didn't renew your subscription. Sometimes you did. You used to follow every member's Twitter handle, from Anand Ranganathan to Madhu Trehan to me and Manisha. And you have read both Anand's books and Madhu's book between 2014 and 2017.
Then what happened?
Then things changed between 2018 and 19. For the last 3 years, I've been teaching, guiding computer science engineers. And during this time, you noticed you had left, and then you realized Anand left News Laundry and you were busy and you couldn't follow why. And you are shocked to see his Twitter and the kind of opinions that he normalizes and the kind of things that he communicates. And you were quite shocked and disgusted. And then you go on to say, during March 2019, I was shocked at the influence RSS, Modi, BJP, and all these intellectuals have on college students, because you say a lot of your students follow people like Anand and used to really value what he said, and you find it really worrying. And now it's taken some time for you to come out of your cynicism and realize that the only right thing to do is support people who are doing the right thing. Due to COVID, my small-scale tech training center is closed, and for the time being, I will limit a monthly or quarterly subscriptions. When the situation permits, I will buy higher options. The fact that you're buying options, even though you're going through a financial crunch, dear anonymous, wonderful person, is good enough. Thank you so much. And you've said when you take up a mainstream corporate job, we will increase the amount you give us. Well, you can keep giving us what you're giving us right now. That's more than enough. $300 is fine.
Also, one thing is that apart from subscribing, you guys also please start actively sharing our stuff, because like when you encounter views that you think, for example, you said people follow RSS and all that, please share our videos, our content, especially like we've done so much stuff on Riya and Sushant. If you have people in your family who think Riya should be hanged like Yaqub Memem, please share our stories. Please share the stuff we do. That also really helps us a lot.
So then you've gone on to say that you're writing to exchange your ideas with News Laundry in the context of the SSR developments. While you really value what we do and you appreciate our work, you say that you can't make up your mind on what happened with SSR, that why are we calling out, let's say, Navika, and to the extent that it is not a murder. I'm not sure I've said it conclusively, but I have said I don't think there is enough evidence for me to suggest that there is a murder.
Even the CBI is not investigating a murder.
So you say, I agree with Manisha. What Manisha said in one hafta, SSR death and its aftermath is an interesting sociological case study. But I feel how much ever you try to distance and try to be objective, it is not easy. After Rajdeep's interview with Riya, I saw a few tweets from Manisha and Rajshri in which they commented about Sushant not talking to his father for 5 years, and Anikta, whatever her name is,
Ankita Lokhande,
who was not in touch with SSR for 4 years, and commenting about his state of mind, etc. So while criticizing the media trial that Republican Times have conducted, you started getting affected based on what Ria said. So what you're saying is that isn't it the same? Well, actually,
No, it's not the same because Rajshri, Rajshri, of course, being Rajshri, said that this family is, she was a little harsh on the
Rajshri
family.
Rajshri.
So I agree. I mean, with the father and what the family, whether he met or not met, I don't know. But with Ankita Lokhande, it's pretty clear, and she said so herself, right, that she wasn't in touch with him for about 4 years. So then how is she going around saying that, he was such a happy guy और उसको कभी कुछ नहीं हो सकता था और वो इतना positive था, इतना ये था, इतना वो था. I mean, if you haven't met the guy for 4 years, how can you...
But my anonymous friend, I really appreciate your... I love how open-minded you are about stuff and how you are even self-critical. I really appreciate that. But, the only difference is you're right that anything is possible. For example, I'm not trying to be morbid or facetious, कहते हैं, but I'm trying to be purely logical. Pranab Da was in an ICU for the last 10-15 days.
He was in a coma.
Now, someone could say that he could have come out, but there was some foul play in there. Now, none of us know. We haven't been in there.
It happened in Jayalalitha's case.
Yeah, that whole speculation happened in Jayalalitha's. Okay, let's take that example. Now, I can't conclusively say because I wasn't there. But I can say from the evidence that is available and from the basic logic that I can make of circumstances, whether it is worth pursuing a report, like, as the CEO of this organization, I can, while I don't sit on day-to-day edit meets, if I find something, yaar, wo zabardast story hai, guys, let's do that story. Now, would I say that for a Jayalalitha story or a Pranab Da story because there just isn't anything there that one can pursue. So I think you may have got influenced by some of the fake news that is going around on the evidence ki bhai wahan par ye mila, naked body mili. Wo kuch nahi mila. Our reporter has been to that colony. So you're right. Anything is possible. Like anything is possible in Jayalalitha or with Pranab Da. But from what we know, there is no reason to suspect anything other than what has been obviously stated.
Also, let us look at what's being investigated. If you move out of Primetime Studios, CBI is investigating an abetment to suicide case. They're not investigating a murder. The Supreme Court itself, when the case was given to the CBI, said that they have no reason to believe that the Mumbai police has indulged in any foul play. The only thing they did wrong was obstruct a Patna police guy from... that was, of course, politics. He was quarantined. They just put him in a quarantine saying, now you can't. But the Supreme Court itself has said that there was no proof of foul play by Mumbai. CBI is investigating a case into abetment of suicide. This is the fact that... These are facts we know till now. Not tomorrow, if they say ki murder angle bhi kare, so that's another thing. But based on what we know, there isn't a murder angle.
Also, if you're a journalist, you're a reporter and you think maybe there's some foul play, you want to investigate that, do that.
Yeah.
But you don't go around vilifying people.
Yeah.
What they have done to Riya Chakrabarti back in the day, they used to call people women witches and burn them at the stake. It's no less than that.
Exactly.
And the idea of justice, the fundamental principle is that people are presumed innocent until they are proved guilty. This is not the case here. You are just going yesterday like that India Today reporter. Maybe that gentleman, maybe he was a drug peddler, but you don't have any evidence. You don't go into his home in front of his children and his family and say you are a drug peddler. Saying these things, making these baseless without allegations, without evidence, it has actually destroyed people's lives in this country. So many people have ended up in jail, spent 10 years, 20 years in jail because they were called terrorists or something else. And they weren't. And even also, now, this Kafil Khan, who was released the other day, Dr. Kafil Khan, the court said after 7 months that his speech was for unity and integrity. And he was jailed on the basis of that speech. The police said it was communal violence, whatever, and all that.
And Mehraj brings a very important point that yes, as reporters, we do report on cover-ups. There have been cover-ups in the history of India. Jessica Lal case is a great case where, apparently no one had murdered her till journalists started digging and started finding witnesses. Do that. But then at the end of it, we present facts. What are we being presented here are conspiracy theories from social media. Ki wo WhatsApp chat mein tha. Karni Sena guy. A Karni Sena guy is at, the place at the hospital where Sushant's body is, and he's saying, maine suna kisi ne Dubai bola. So there's a Dubai drug connection. That's not how journalists operate, no? If I want to establish a Dubai drug connection, there should be a paper trail. There should be, change of money. There should be some documents. There should be some witness who says something.
There was some MLA on Times now who said that there should be a drug test, like there is a drug test on all sportsmen. Yeah. There should be a drug test on all the Bollywood people.
Wasn't that Kangana Ranaut who said that?
Kangana has said that she has named 4 stars, Ranbir, Vicky, some guys, that they should come forward because there are rumors they're drug addicts. They should come clean and give. But
What's that
this-
got to do with them like winning awards for their work?
it
Even if
has
they are
but this guy's this MLA, the BJP MLA who said that जैसे sportsman का होता है बॉलीवुड वालों का भी होना चाहिए. I'm saying पहले तो सबसे पहले तो न्यूज एंकर्स का होना चाहिए कि भाई what are the classic symptoms? Overexcited,
Yeah.
restless, too much movement, too much shouting. Now I don't see Vicky Kaushal or Ranveer Kapoor or anyone doing that. I see Arnab doing that. I see Padma Joshi doing that. I'm
No.
like, पहले तो इनका कराओ.
If we were to actually do like an investigation, the way TV news does investigation, we can actually nail these guys with this.
you should
be
do
really
a
funny. We should
show
do a
on
counter.
that.
And then we should run after
देखिए
them.
कैसे फुदक रहे हैं, कौन फुदकता है. और हमारे साथ हैं हमारे फिजिकल ट्रेनर एक्सपर्ट महराज. क्या बिना ड्रग के ऐसी अपनी सीट पे स्टूडियो फुदकना जायज है?
हरगिज नहीं.
And you know,
हरगिज़ नहीं. ऐसे
in,
मैनेज मुझे याद है जब मैं पीपली लाइव में मैं अपनी प्रैक्टिस कर रहा था. हाँ.
this Ankita Lokhande thing, she herself has said that, I wasn't in touch with him for 4 years. And I think you're doing such a disservice to the whole concept and conversations around mental health when you haven't met the guy A for 4, you say you're not in touch. Then you come on TV and say, वो तो बड़ा खुश था मेरे साथ और वो तो इतना positive था, वो डायरी लिखता था. Yeah, depressed people can do all of that and still be depressed and still, take matters into their hand and do something as drastic as...
By the way,
It's just pathetic.
so anyway, even anger is one of the things that happens when you're depressed. Many people channel it that side.
The latest investigation now, when we're talking about investigations, the Times now says that he was Googling property prices. So which depressed person looks at properties? He wanted properties in beautiful places and wherever he was looking for cool or
Dear
whatever.
God, man.
Arey yaar, you could be a bipolar
Anyway.
person, searching for property on moon at
Okay.
one point. And anyway.
Now, a couple of more mails is from Prakash Ayyar. Prakash says, Mehraj is cutting a sorry figure with each passing hafta. Any slight prodding on Islamism results in weak defenses which are countered, if at all, with utmost caution by the panel. So, Islamic world is illiberal towards minorities because of a war-ravaged recent history. As if prior to those wars, that region was leading the world in liberal values. Not to mention other ravaged countries like Vietnam, which have no such issues. In context of Bengaluru riots, there are positive parts of Quran to be shared, while the rest of the panel apparently is totally unaware of any deep-rooted issues in Quran. Though if someone had ever quoted anything positive from Manusmriti, no need to guess how that would have been pounced upon. Or for commenting against Islam in the panel can always hide behind the fig leaf of depends on interpretation. We are not theologians. All this while the entire panel agrees passionately on casteist fabric of Hindu society, but Islam is of course not a fabric of any region. And this attitude is not just in discussion specific events recently. Over long periods of time, listen to Hafta, it is too clear how panel walks on eggshells when it comes to discussing issues or events on Islamism. While talking about casteism, panel's freedom is too evident. Jokes, anger, mocking, modulation of tone are all there, but with Islamism, it's a limited stiff commentary which comes as tokenism. Hard to write this off as bias. This attitude is something weirder. Don't know what to call it, but it is not just bias. I'm glad you guys at least discuss caste freely, and interviews like T.M. Krishna on his book are excellent. At least that part you are doing right. So before I let Mehraj respond, Prakash, two things. In screenwriting lingo, there is something called a blurt. A blurt is an idea that comes to your head and you just blurt it out and you write that out. But you never send the blurt to anybody. You go, take a walk, you have a bath, you have a shower, you do whatever you want, and then you come and rewrite it. You've sent a blurt. It's angry and it is full of many holes which I will puncture shortly. One is you should not assume what I will say about something or the other. That I will say this about. If anyone says something, let me respond and then you'll see what I say. My view on taking any religious text literally is the same, whether it's the Quran, whether it's the Bible, whether it's the Gita, whether anything. So your assumption is wrong. And I have articulated that several times on Hafta, that what is problematic is that this interpretation is wrong. Then anyone can interpret it anyway. I do not believe taking any religious text is a good defense or a good argument, no matter how you interpret it, because that's not the point as far as I'm concerned. Anyone can have their view. Secondly, challenging people or not, or walking on eggshells or disagreeing politely. I'll give you an example. I'm sure you didn't write a letter when Madhu Trehan forced me up by the collar and made me stand up for the national anthem when we went to watch a film together. Now, you didn't say, why didn't I wrestle her to the ground and say, main nahi khada hoonga? Ab bhai, theek hai yaar. I don't believe one conversation with me is going to change her mind. And for everything else, I agree with her. I disagree with her on many things she said about Tabligh. I disagree with many things she said about Kashmir. But I don't believe my one conversation is going to change her mind. I don't agree with Anand Vardhan on many things, but I don't believe I'll change his mind. You assume that me not forcing someone to change his mind is walking on eggshells. And the second thing is the context is different. If I was sitting here in a non-Modi, non-Yogi India, I may be wording what I say differently. So these are 2 or 3 things you should keep in mind when you write a mail, because we'd like to keep it a little more, should I say, devoid of name calling each other at least. We can do that to Arnabs and stuff, but not within the News Laundry subscriber community. But Miraj, go ahead.
A lot of things. First, casteism and Islamism are like completely different things. There is no comparison. One. Two, you said about some problematic stuff you found in the Quran. I'm sure you did, but I mean, I can't respond to generalities. To the best of my knowledge, to the best of my limited knowledge, I can like discuss parts which you find offensive or whatever. We can discuss that. That's two. Third part is, I never said that Islamic world is liberal or it's not liberal. What I said is that idea that Muslim countries or Muslim nations are singular in persecuting minorities is just bunkum. Let's look at the facts. Like I said the last time also, this is the perception gleaned from headlines. Let's look at the facts. Right now, China has put almost 10 million Muslims in concentration camps. Every day there are stories about that. It's a genocide in progress. Myanmar committed a genocide. We all know that. Sri Lanka, in Buddhists, what they did to Muslims. What Israel is doing in Palestine to Muslims. What Russia is doing to Muslims in the Caucasus, Dagestan and Chechnya. Even in Angola, what is happening to Muslims? Now tell me, of all these things, tell me a comparable example in the Muslim world. What I said is this is happening because if you look at all these countries also, they're either authoritarian, they're ethno-nationalist states. Even in India, I mean, if you really look at it, the most persecution of minorities right now anywhere in the world is happening in India, apart from China and Myanmar. You have Muslims being,
we can say.
You have Muslims being persecuted. I'm not just mean religious minorities. Muslim minorities, Dalits, Adivasis. They're not considered minorities. That's another violence. In fact, India is an outlier in this case. All these other countries, they're either authoritarian, ethno-national states, and in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia is practically destroyed Yemen. I mean, that's a human catastrophe of
in fact, Dheeraj has written a piece
enormous proportions.
Has written
but that is not because they're Muslim. They're committing crimes against them because they're Muslim, or it's a political dispute, right? All this is happening. Saudi Arabia, the Syria, China, Thailand, all these, they're either dictatorships, they're authoritarian regimes, they're ethno-nationalist states in Israel's case. India is an outlier because it's a democracy, and for the most part, it's been at peace for the last 70 years. And still you have this.
I mean, yeah.
This singular, I never said that this is not the case. The world is rife with violence. But this case that it's a particularly Muslim problem is not true. And even in the West, for example, in US, UK, Muslims are the most, study after study has shown that Muslims are the community that's most discriminated against.
But the first email that had come, who was, I think he was also Muslim only, the one who'd written, at least in the Indian context, I'm not going to talk about the international context, these things that come out when, like he said, this, when that Azam Khan is this thing, it's the pushback from within the community. And Prakash, right? Prakash, one more thing I'll say, I call out my own with a lot more authority than I call out others. And the reason for that is obvious, because you can be more critical of your religion, which is why I always have said that there should be more voices of liberal, which is the point I made last time also, has to be from within the community. Otherwise, it is never going to be taken well. So I think that's too basic and a thing for me to actually restate again and again. And if you go back and read my piece on Bill Maher and Islam, I have made the point that I do think that there is a certain illiberalism in Islam fundamentally, which has communicated itself in various ways. And Miraj may not agree with me and I may not agree with him, but that's fine. That's life.
No, I agree. I have said that because like I was talking about that theological aspect of blasphemy, for example. See, one is religion. One is religious thought. So what you see in extremism, for example, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, that is rooted in religious thought that got solidified in the last 700, 800 years, starting from Imam Abu Hanifa. What happened in Islam is when Islam came, one was the religion. One was the Prophet's teaching. So the Quran and the Prophet's teaching was the religion. Over time, as happens with every civilization, as happens with every religion, over time, for some reason, the Islamic idea of Islam became too legalistic. So Muslims produced these great legal minds over the centuries, starting in the first, second centuries, and they codified these laws. So right now, for example, I'm for example a Hanafi, or another is a Shafi, another is a Hanbali. You have those sects. What are those sects? They're basically legal. Those are different legal interpretations of Quran, not theological interpretations, legal interpretations of Quran. So that is how it's solidified, and that created a religious thought. And that religious thought, which sort of has been, I suppose, the most well articulated by Maulana Maududi, which you call Islamism or Islamism, or political Islam. So that is the religious thought which has dominated over the last 70, 80 years. Why? Because the political conditions were such. It came out within a political context. Islam in the last 1400 years has produced 4 or 5 people who have basically reinterpreted the whole religious thought. I mean, people have done legally, separately. Why it has happened is, I mean, you often hear this idea of takfiri, like Muslims are allowed to kill other Muslims if they don't believe in it. How did then that come about? Imam Abu Taymiyyah. So he was this theologian in 13th century Syria. What happened is, at that time, the Mongols came and sacked Baghdad. Then those Mongols became Muslims. And because they hadn't yet accepted Islam, or whatever the tradition was until then, the Muslims usually didn't fight with each other. But these guys didn't accept that. They used to fight against other Muslims also. And Imam Abu Taymiyyah believed that they shouldn't be fighting against the rulers of Egypt who were at that time. They wouldn't listen. The king wouldn't listen. So he issued this fatwa saying that you are allowed to kill Muslims also. And that has become the sort of the legal precedent that everybody from Al-Qaeda to ISIS to Taliban side to justify that. That came in the 13th century.
So they're using that to justify it today.
Exactly.
Okay.
So similarly, Maududi's thought came in response to what was happening. The British Empire was winding up. Muslims had lost political power in the subcontinent. The caliphate had wound up in Turkey. So they were just looking at what happened. How do you regain power? And their interpretation was political Islam. You have to politicize Islam. And that religious thought created all this extremism.
So we have a mail regarding that on Dhiraj also. Manisha, you want to come in before I move on?
I mean, no one can make the case that Islam is like the most beautiful religion and there's no flaw in it. Of course, there are flaws in it, and none of us have ever portrayed it as this holy cow of a religion. Even when you look at caste, you look at in India, it's not as if caste only impacts Hindu society, by the way. It impacts Muslim and Christian society. You look at the difference in the Sayyid and the Ashrafs who, maybe make it to Lok Sabha or occupy all positions of importance, and compare it to Pasmanda Muslims that are backward Muslims. It's nowhere. It's terrible. And I'm sure in terms of marriages also, I mean, I haven't delved deep in it, but I'm sure in terms of marriages, you would not, even Muslims in India would probably practice the same sort of intercaste, quote unquote, practices that Hindus do.
They do.
You have Christians who have separate churches for Dalits.
In Sardar, I mean, I can't use the word, but there is a word which is a casteist word, which is illegal to use. They have that preceded with Sardar. They use that in Punjab all the time.
Yeah.
In fact,
which was that Sikhism,
film,
which was the whole religion is about fighting,
Yeah, which was that film where the Sikh, where he cuts off the head? It was Patal Lok only, na? Where the Jat Sikhs come and cut off that guy's, they rape his mother and cut off his head.
So, I mean, even and caste is, I think, it's a South Asian problem, not just Indian Muslims. You'd find this also in, I'm sure, Pakistan and Bangladesh also. The thing where I would not really argue with, I think you need more Muslims to have this conversation, because I don't have a skin in the game. It's not my religion. I care about what's happening to Hinduism. It's as simple as that for me. I care about how people interpret our scriptures and our festivals and where that is going and what impact Hindutva is having on Hinduism. I think this conversation is maybe we need more Muslims who disagree with each other talk about it. And also, I haven't read enough. Like, I haven't read the Quran to really know whether...
That's what I want to talk about. I think more than, not having skin in the game or not having, is... Now, I grew up in a very Hindu household. I am quite proud that I know the Mahabharata and every little character of the Mahabharata, from a Barbarik to the importance of Ghatotkacha and how he was responsible for Arjun having survived, and the casteism inherent in that, because I know that story so well. So I was telling my niece and nephew the other day, much to my mother's chagrin, which she was quite upset. I was saying that the Mahabharata is a story of bhai bhatijawad ko?
Nepotism.
Nepotism. I was saying nepotism had Barbarik not been shafted, had Eklavya not been shafted, had Karn not been shafted, Arjun would not be the greatest warrior ever. Because Barbarik could have defeated Arjun, Eklavya could have defeated Arjun, this Rakshas, Bhim's son, Hidimba's son could have defeated Arjun. And you see how the Guru or Krishna or someone plays them that you cannot fight because you are not this caste, you are Sarthi's son, you are this, you are that. So now I know the scripture really well. So I can critique it. I have never read the Quran and I have no interest in reading the Quran. I have not read the Bible, I have no interest in reading the Bible. I have not read the Torah, kehte hai na?
Torah.
I have not read the Torah, I have no interest in reading the Torah. If I read it at some point or if Ramanand Sagar makes a serial and I watch it, then I'll give my VTs on it. I don't...
Yeah, and I think, but you're right. I agree to the point that there needs to be more open conversations on Islam. And in India, of course, we have the largest populations of Muslims. So maybe in popular media also, there needs to be more discourse between Muslims who disagree with each other, how they view their religion, blasphemy, hijab.
But let's be realistic,
Lots of
it
other
cannot
practices.
happen in this environment. In this environment, any step back would, like, I don't think by itself, I don't think there's anything wrong with the Ram temple's demand. But I know for a fact that is, ye to pehli jaake Mathura Kashi baki hai. It is not, because the idea is not the temple. The idea is completely different. It is much bigger, which is why the context in which a conversation happens is important, which is the point I think Hartosh also made.
No, also, I mean, it's not that these conversations are not happening. It's just that because the media doesn't care. And you only get, like I said, you get this idea from the headlines.
Like, I
These
remember-
conversations are happening. There are revivalist movements. Like I said about the Farai school. It's a huge movement now. It has like basically turned upside down the religious thought, what I was talking about, the Maududi thought. It's turned it upside down and it's happening. It's spread all over the world, US, UK, Australia. I mean, it's still in its nascent states, but it's happening. It's just
In
because
fact, I
people
remember-
don't care about it. That's a
I remember
different matter.
Irfan Khan, who had put out a critique of Qurbani, and where he said that the point is not to sacrifice a goat, it's really to, sacrifice. It's
Give
it's
up
more to do
something
with
you-
give up something that you love, and it's more to sort of go within yourself, and it's just become a mindless ritual now. But you will not listen to him. You want to listen to Tariq Fateh, who will show you fake pictures of Bangladesh
exactly.
and say, "Dekho, khoon ki nadiyan beh rahi hain old Delhi mein." So it's a
Yeah,
problem with
exactly.
the media also.
No,
Intelligent
it is-
critique of Islam
the-
also needs to be
The
read.
fact that people like Tariq Fateh and that Vivek Agnihotri
Yeah.
have moved not just from the Republic and the Times, now they've moved on to, Agnihotri was on India Today TV. Now if those are the voices that
Yeah.
inform your population,
Or Madhu Kishwar saying things like, you converted for the bag of rice or whatever. Anyway, she's a nut. We shouldn't talk to her, but
If you have to read the most scathing criticism of Islam, Islamic thought, listen to these like Islamic scholars. Absolutely brutal. I mean, no Tariq Fateh can come anywhere near them. Absolutely brutal.
they will not
But
find
because
space.
you don't know about that, so you assume that's not happening. Another thing what Manisha said about casteism in Islam, for example, that ties into my point. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Muslims also have casteism, if not the caste system. Nowhere else in the world Muslims
Yeah,
have this.
have that.
So is it a religious problem? Elsewhere they have racism, other stuff.
Sure.
Is it a religious problem? No, it's a socio-cultural problem.
Absolutely. Then Aditya Ranganathan writes, "Hello NL team. Hafta letters over the past few weeks show clear discomfort in the subscriber base whenever the privileges of upper caste Hindu get challenged. In particular, I would like to respond to the letter by Prakash Iyer last week, where the subscriber equates Dalit oppression by upper caste Hindus to Hindus being oppressed by Muslims in the past. A questionable claim. The letter goes on to cite Bangladesh and Pakistan, two sovereign nations that have nothing to do with the Indian Muslim, as sources of Hindu angst. Holding an Indian Muslim constantly answerable for problems faced by minorities in other Muslim countries is appalling and akin to insinuating that their natural homeland isn't India. To compare atrocities on Dalits to cherry-picked instances of violence by Muslim rulers in medieval India is an attempt to falsely paint all sides as equally disadvantaged. Subjugation of Dalits isn't a thing of the past. It is very much a reality in today's India. The truth is that be it in medieval India or today, the upper caste Hindu has always been a privileged group, regardless of the identity of those in power. That Muslims historically oppressed Hindus is a selective argument that the right wing uses to demonize the Muslims living in India today, conveniently ignoring equally violent non-Muslim rulers. The letter goes on to put the onus of extending the olive branch on a community that has been abused and humiliated on a daily basis based on notional medieval wrongdoings. As privileged upper caste Hindus living overseas, it is hard for us to fathom the humiliation and otherization felt by minority groups in India today. To put the onus of reconciliation on the minorities is arrogant and fails to acknowledge the power asymmetry, historically and contemporary. The Indian Muslim today is the oppressed class, and so is a Dalit living in current day India. There is no real equivalence between Dalit groups asking for reservation and a Hindu upper caste vandalizing a mosque. One is a long oppressed, also currently oppressed group fighting for a more equitable society, while the other is driven by the bloodlust of a historically privileged majority fueled by propaganda. The art of premeditated centrism lies in constructing such false equivalences where both sides are assumed to be equally powerful or disadvantaged in order to appear balanced. Till we wholeheartedly acknowledge these power asymmetries, we continue to fuel bigotry and violence intellectually. Aditya. Thank you, Aditya. And just one more email on the same subject. You have something to say before I move on to that?
That's as well put as anybody can.
Maybe we can hold a series when after the lockdown or something.
Yeah, we should
just
hold
get
a
like lots of
I think we should have
different voices. Like maybe
we should have 2-3 big events with our subscribers.
yeah. No, I was talking about this whole Muslim, the concept of critique of Islam. So maybe we can actually like host a series of people, atheists, maybe liberals, conservatives, Muslims, to talk about what they feel about. Maybe that's a space that should be owned, because there's so much crap thinking and cliched
So,
sort of.
see, this is how it works, right?
And it can be frank,
Javed Akhtar, for example, is a self-described atheist. He is an atheist.
उसको बेचारे को
He is the only person who is brought on
extremist बोलते
to
रहते
talk
हैं.
about Muslims.
And he's correct. Yeah, it's just, I think it's the way
And,
it's...
but even Javed Akhtar is an extremist for people. He's an apologist of Islam. So the guy is like
So Dheeraj says, hi there.
critiqued Islam so much.
I was quite intrigued by Mehraj's defense of Islamic countries with bad human rights record. It was quite fascinating to hear some of the countries that he mentioned were democracies that became autocracies. Fair point. My assumption is that he was alluding to the fact that they are autocracies. It is a non-argument if we compare India to these countries because it's obvious that moral authority of a democracy and the standard you would keep a democracy is way higher than an autocratic state. Fair game. If this is the case, then my view below is really irrelevant. But if he was using wars in these countries to justify atrocities against minorities as an act of war, then I'm afraid I'm finding it difficult to digest what you were saying, because the most significant of Islamic countries was not at war for more than 100 years. Gulf War affected Iraq and Kuwait, not much of the rest of GCC. None of the rest of the GCC were really ever bombed. But yeah, Dheeraj, I mean, since you said that it was not one or the other, I think what Mehraj was saying was a little more nuanced. Saudi Arabia, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire in 1919, thanks to its oil money, managed to take its place in the Sunni world, and this country is regressive and is followed by a lot of Islamic countries. There is enough evidence on the support of Mujahideen all over the world, not just Pakistan and Afghanistan. I'm not sure how Mehraj will defend Saudi, UAE and Qatar. Just remember, they're bombing the shit out of Yemen. Anybody who knows the Gulf knows Yemen, despite being an Arab state, are different from its neighbors. So we already discussed this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I mean, it's goodness, not that it's legitimate what they are doing. I mean, I believe unless and until the Saudi monarchy is destroyed, and I say destroyed with a lot
Capital
of
D.
consideration, you will always have these problems in the Gulf, elsewhere, because they have that muscle, they have the financial muscle that they can impact a lot of people all around the world. So unless that is destroyed, that's like one of the greatest evils in this world right now.
You should watch this documentary. I'll give you a link of it. It explains that much of what's happening in the Middle East is basically Iran and Saudi just going at each other. A lot of the politics, the war, the violence is a result of those two states trying to establish some sort of hegemony in the Middle East.
And Iran isn't so much going at it. They're more like responding to...
Okay, so guys, Ashli, Himanshu, Yogesh, all your mails haven't been read yet. And we have so many mails this time. And Bimal and Sagar, there's just a few. So I will read your mails next time. So can I just request our subscribers, don't write mails this week. Just hold them. Let me finish these because I want to include as many as possible. And from next week, even a 401st word, that mail will be, Aditya, we will just eliminate it there only. Because I want more voices. I want to hear more people. I don't want to hear more of one person. But don't mail us this week. Let me finish all these mails because some of them are really making very good points and I want to include as many as possible. And then you can start the cycle again from the week after that. So Manisha, do tell us about the GDP numbers and how it was covered.
It was terrible. But
Pehle context bata do. What is the number? What is year on year? What is annualized so that people know?
Well, annualized year on year was just a random, that was just an IT cell entry into this. The US calculates its numbers, they annualize it, and how they annualize is that they assume that for the next quarters, the economy will continue to contract with the latest numbers. So I think they contracted 9%. You assume that it keeps contracting, and by March 2021, you've contracted 35%. So people took that number and said, oh, look, but 23 is better than 35. But India, looks at quarterly contractions and compares it to the previous quarter. So
Previous
our
year's quarter.
Year on
previous
year.
year's quarter. So we are actually the worst, and I think there was a chart that the IMF chief also put out yesterday,
Yes.
where we're worse than any other country. We're near Brazil and all, right?
IMF actually puts it lower than the official
Yeah.
data. Official is 23 point some percent. IMF is 25.6%.
And what's worse is that this data was collected during the lockdown, so it's suboptimal. It would actually revise to worsen when they have better data. The worst industries affected were construction, which contracted to 50%, trade, hotels and other services 47%, manufacturing 39%, and mining 23%. Private consumption has fallen by 27%, and investments have fallen to half of what they were in the previous quarter. And like you see these numbers and all that, and you're like struck by the percentages. But I, at least for the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, have now started noticing changes around me in the people that come to my house. And this is a story that Scroll also put up, saying that they did a phone survey. The government did a phone survey, and 68% of households in a phone survey have said that their income has fallen down and people have started skipping meals. I know that the person who comes to my house to clean, I mean, for the past 2-3 days, I noticed that she was just having roti with achar. So she'd stopped carrying sabji that she would usually, a sabji or a dal. So, you've cut down on that. She told me that because she's so hard pressed, she stopped, taking her medication also. I have another person who comes to my house for work who's now moving back to where she was staying earlier, in a chawl sort of a place. So she's moved up in her life with her savings over the past 2 years. She now has to move back because she can't afford the rent. Her husband works at Swiggy, and you know what's happening with Swiggy. In fact, you should read Vinay's piece that talks about the protests that are going on. People earning 300 are now earning $33 per.
It's come down by about.
So when you see these little changes that are
3/4.
happening around you, people skipping meals, not eating sabji dal, not buying medicines, not only are you seeing their consumption dip, but imagine what that's doing to, say, the vegetable vendor.
But you're
Because you have so
saying
many people-
some of the largest channels were airbrushing this and were saying it's not so bad.
Yeah,
Like,
so
what-
Arnab was like, so he at least said don't spread paranoia. There's a drug cartel in Mumbai that, peddles drugs, and these people just want to peddle paranoia. Padmaja Joshi was the best. She's like, but this is the fact of life, that this is happening, and coronavirus has done it. And actually, it's not the coronavirus. It's because we were already in a free fall before the coronavirus, because of which we've been hit hard. And right now, you should be asking the government. The only way we can get out of this is government spending. There's nothing else that can save us. Government has to give money right in the hands. It has to create maybe construction projects. Which is what I was thinking. Actually, maybe the Central Vista is a good idea now. It employs
but
people.
then
It's
again-
what Nawabs would do, no? That's how Lucknow ka Imambada was built.
Yeah, but
there was a famine.
we've
so you
discussed
just-
this.
but
Obviously,
even then, the government spending this quarter has increased by only 11%. So they announced that 20 lakh crore package, right?
much of it was not new.
Whatever it was, so the increase is only about 1 lakh crore, just over 1 lakh crore in this kind of recession, which is like nothing.
No, but
So they don't even have the money to spend.
yeah,
And
but
seeing
is
people
what-
they can-
actually go back
economists-
to what they were 2 years ago, it's really heartbreaking. People who saved, who'd risen up a certain income level have just gone
there was a
back
really
crashing.
heartbreaking story this morning on CNN, and of course, I mean, kind of Don Lemon killed it by tearing up, which just gets my goat when news anchors tear up. Like, dude, just read the news. Don't show me how emotional you are. Of people being evicted because they had got that. क्या कहते हैं, when they had got a leniency,
Home loan?
not home loan.
Mortgage.
Waiver?
हाँ, like they had not waiver, but the technical,
Deferred payments.
they had said that it is extended by this month, but whatever is that economic term that they're using there. But now the judge has said you have to evict. So the cop who was evicting them, and here, for all that we say about America, at least the cop can talk to a camera and say, yes, I feel really bad doing it. He says, I have 6 children of my own, and I have an old mother, and I'm evicting women who are like 80. I'm evicting a guy with 2 children. All he has is a pram. So he's just putting, and the cop he says, I have to evict 12 people today because the judge has sent me this and this is my job. I don't enjoy it. But this is happening there in America. And the guys who are coming out, they say, now we have nowhere to go. Now we'll probably go to some shelter or this thing. So, but what you said about the Central Vista, what America is saying is this is a good time to rebuild their infrastructure, which is crumbling, their bridges and all.
Use it
So
for
if you
something
want to
actually
do it,
need.
build bloody 20 other aims ना.
Yeah.
उसमें सीमेंट लगेगा, उसमें बिजली लगेगी, पाइप्स लगेंगी, बिस्तरे लगेंगे. हमें दे दो, हमें ही कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, हम मैट्रेसेस बना लेंगे यहाँ से. यहाँ कितने कबूतर आते हैं मेरी
Build
बिल्डिंग
something
में,
that'll
उनके their bloody feathers are just everywhere. They're bloody cluttering up the whole corridors. हम ही उसकी मैट्रेसेस बना के तुम्हें भेज देते हैं. सेंट्रल से क्या होगा? What you choose to make also shows your mindset, na?
Yeah, don't be the Lucknow Nawabs building an Imambada for. Also, yeah, I mean, I'm also. So the Congress spokesperson on Aaj Tak at least was very prepared. She ambushed. Anjana was discussing China. And of course, they spread fake news. They showed a cemetery from 1962 war and said, ye Galwan Valley ke yodha hai. And, she cornered Sambit with good facts and figures. And Sambit just went into this usual rant of anti-national ho. तुमने चाइना में कितने मरे क्यों नहीं बोलते? And anchors let them get away with it. It's so disheartening. It's. I mean, this is something. If you're a hotel management student, I mean, this is going to affect so many people. You're not going to get a job in this industry. You lose one and you won't even get one. I don't think these industries can create jobs for the next 1 or 2 years. The way they've contracted.
This is the most heartbreaking part about it. Like you said, these stories, people are just like have no option. People are desperate. But you still see these people obsessed about numbers. US में इतना हुआ, यहाँ पे इतना हुआ, because it doesn't directly affect them. At least not in the immediate term. Their job is still there. They're still on TV. Other people, they don't have that luxury. So this whole idea, oh, we'll talk about this, we'll talk about the numbers. This shows you the class, huge class disparity in this country. What these people are worried about and what's actually happening there on the ground.
So on that note, we shall wind this up. We didn't get time to discuss the Facebook bit, but what happened was basically the parliamentary committee questioned the head of Facebook, Ajit Mohan, and the BJP is accusing Facebook of being pro-Congress, and they are digging up some old links he had. I think he's from JNU or something, or they're payloading something. Meanwhile, the other side is, and they're saying that Akhi Das's father-in-law was with the TMC, and then Congress is saying that they were the BJP. And in all this, Australia, we had discussed that the law that they passed. I saw a really interesting interview on BBC, where what this woman, she's an academic who does work on this, she says, so what Australia has done is it has passed a legislation that Facebook has to share the ad revenue they get with the legacy media outfits whose news is shared on Facebook. They said, don't want to share, we will not show their news on Facebook. Khatam baat. Now this woman says, while people may think this is a good thing, what it does is, that legislation did not take into account smaller media players. And Australia is in any case a very concentrated media market. There are just 3 or 4 big players where everybody gets their news from. And Australia is also one of the highest markets where people consume news through Facebook. So with the big media players out of the picture and smaller ones not getting a share of the revenue anyway, the market is open for fake news peddlers. So what she said was that this will mean that now most Australians will start falling more for fake news. So because this becomes such a complicated matter, I think the only way to do is these big companies have to be dismantled or broken up into smaller ones. But Facebook हो जाएगा, Google का क्या करेंगे? I'm wondering. We are more dependent on them ना. YouTube हो गया, हमारे videos सारे हो गए.
But I suppose they're pushing back because if it happens in Australia, it can happen elsewhere also.
Absolutely.
So, but I read, which is the other view, which is that in Australia, for example, people mostly use Facebook for news. So if they don't show you any news, Facebook is pretty much useless for you.
They may go back to regular news. That's a good idea. Actually, I hope that happens. But,
so it's Facebook's loss also. But they're pushing back because if it happens there, it can happen elsewhere. Yeah.
So guys, just a couple of announcements. One is the Tiranga soap we are giving to subscribers only. If you still want it, you can write into us at contact@newslaundry.com. Also, we're going to be unveiling a bunch of new funky stuff. It's only going to be for subscribers, just letting you know. So it's not for everybody. Those of you listening to this hafta for free, well, enjoy it for the next few weeks. Then we're moving behind the paywall as we move to a new website. And do contribute, pay to keep news free. And like Manisha said, if you can't afford to pay, at least share our stuff with other people.
Yeah, especially with your friends and family.
Because that's who... So don't share with your enemies. Like normally,
no, actually,
Manisha...
I always forget because with journalists, you're always sharing stuff with... Like because I'm a journalist, I'm always sharing it with other journalists. I mean, I rarely ever share stuff with my friends and family.
I thought you go as you go outside office. Bhai sahab, suniye, aapne ye program dekha hai?
No, in journalist life, there are 3 things. There are journalist friends, then there are friends and family.
That's always... So, yeah, on that note, all the emails that got left behind, we shall read next time. So, don't mail us this week. Listen to our emails next week and you can mail us the week after that. Let's have the recommendations. Mehraj, let's start with you.
I'll recommend this piece in The Guardian. It's the long read. It's about this network of terrorist groups sponsored by US and the military regimes they put up in Latin America during the 70s and 80s, which went around killing, torturing, raping people, and how gradually they're being brought to justice. It's called Operation Condor, the illegal state network that terrorized South America.
So this is an old piece in Vox, Flood the Zone with Shit, how misinformation overwhelmed our democracy. So Steve Bannon, who headed Breitbart News and he was strategist for Donald Trump, had said back in when they were in 2018 when he was working with Trump that Democrats don't matter. The real opposition is the media, and the way to deal with them is to flood the zone with shit. I really think we should read this because this is what is happening in India. We are being flooded with shit, except the media is not the problem. Media is part of the shit. So you have social media, IT cell, and you have like primetime anchors who are flooding our life with shit. And to counter this, I think there's another piece that you must read in the print by Asim Ali. He makes a very good case of why we should not give into cynicism. So even though we are being flooded with shit, it's important to keep our head above it, not be cynics, and fight back in whatever way we can.
That piece is really good, the Steve Bannon one. Actually, when this whole thing started about US fell 30%, here it is only 23%. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
I mean, this is what...
that's textbook Steve Bannon.
It's really, he's, in fact, Richard, who we've done a conference with for Media Rumble Dispatches, he says that, Steve Bannon is like the McDonald's franchise. So everyone's following that model now. But it's, in the Ria case, this is actually what's happening. There's just so much. And we're going to have a great piece up by Saturday by Nidhi. We've spoken to some of the people who have social media pages up that are spreading misinformation, and that, those Justice for Sushant sort of pages. So to get you into the mind of the people who are doing this.
So I'd like to recommend a book. And so, I'm sorry I don't recall your name, but I couldn't read your email last time. You had said that, when we have someone like Suraj Yengde on the Hafta, we should be better prepared so we can ask him about his book. Actually, the Hafta is not a detailed interview format. That is, just a general chit-chat. I've done a separate interview with him on his book after having read his book. And that's the book I want to recommend, Caste Matters. It's really a troubling read. And it puts so many things in perspective. And it also... I think it shows you caste privilege in a way where those of us who have it don't have internalized it to such an extent we don't even realize how powerful it is. And it starts off as a deeply personal piece and goes on to a very academic piece. So I would highly recommend that piece, a book. It's called Caste Matters. It's by Suraj Yengde. That's my recommendation. And I don't know if you can find it, but this interview with this lady academic, this media analyst from Australia on the BBC, she was on Tuesday morning. If you can check it out, I think that's also a good interview to watch. On that note, we shall leave you. Do subscribe and pay to keep news free. Those of you who haven't subscribed yet, loosen your purse strings and support independent media. Goodbye, good luck. I'll leave you with this song to uplift your spirits a little bit.
I love you. Ooh, yeah, I love you. तुझे पेरिस दिखाऊं, तुझे लंदन घुमाऊं, तुझे ब्रांडी पिलाऊं, विस्की पिलाऊं और खिलाऊं मुर्गी के अंडे खाना मेरी जान संडे के संडे.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.